o'clock, so I'll call to order the Village Board of Trustees. Start with vaccines. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me. Did you roll?
Yep, Trevor Larson.
Is it?
Trustee Baden?
Here.
Campbell. Kazmar.
Here.
Ward? Yes. Ziegler.
Here.
Service.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Was the meeting
The
posted?
meeting was posted as required by law.
Next is public participation. Public participation allows citizens to be heard on any agenda and non-agenda item. The public may also comment during the public participation section of each item. The village board shall make no decisions or consideration of actions of citizen comments for items not on the agenda, except to refer the matter to the village administrator for administrative consideration or to schedule the matter for board consideration at a later date. As usual, we try to keep comments under 3 minutes in length, and before making a comment, please state your name, address, and take the podium for Aaron to make good notes. Does anybody have any non-agenda items? Connie, Judy, Terry. Here, I don't know who went first for you two. Terry, you were last also.
Go ahead, Connie.
You went first last time.
Right. I did. One of those.
Yeah, you did. Connie Erfer. First off, I'd like to thank Jim for the bench. It was very well used, and she loves music in the park, so that was a great thing for you to do. Thank you. And I'd also like to apologize for coming here first. I'm used to coming here first because over there never got taken care of. And now I know you do, so I will come to you if I have anything. Okay. My other thing is, I knew this a while back and I forgot to bring it up, but I see it's in the stuff we're not supposed to talk about. 57 River Street. How come we are never told when you're buying something, why you're buying it, how much it costs? And why do we want Larry's strip anyways? How come that's not brought up to us taxpayers who are going to pay for that? How much are we paying?
Weigh in. We can't disclose the amount that's being considered to be paid for it because we haven't landed on that number yet. Previously it was brought up. We decided not to move forward with purchasing it.
Right, because Larry wanted more than he wanted to pay.
I don't know that was necessarily the answer, but I don't think that was the answer because I was actually in the closed session and that's not the answer.
Okay.
But that said, we took a different approach and there's now a different situation in front of us. So we can divulge that if we come to a conclusion and it closes. But I think ultimately, residents would be pleased with the solution.
Oh, no.
What are we getting that land?
Well, it surrounds the lake. It's frontage along the lake, obviously, right? So there's an interest as it pertains to that. The other issue in play, for me at least, is that the village has historically cared for mowing that land historically. So if we would like to do that, continue to do that, I think the village has an interest in owning it if we're doing that maintenance.
But it seems that we never know about this stuff. Like you keep talking about buying land across the road from Sewer Park and we don't know anything about that. It's just, we're told that all the time. Now we have this strip of weeds that is going to be parkland. I think that's how it was put. Park something or
It
other.
would ultimately be parkland if we designate it that way.
It just seems to me that us taxpayers should know how much we're spending and if we want to spend it. And especially when we don't have any money things should be placed in what's important to spend that money on first. That's my comment.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Connie, and I don't think it's, the intent here is not to hide it from the public. It's that we aren't far enough in the process to have it yet. But I think if we land where I expect that we're gonna land, I think you'll actually be pleased with what the outcome is.
Quick question on the consent agenda.
So Judy Facha,
Oh, your name, they don't know it.
Uh,
she's Mary's
Judy
taking
Facha.
notes, so I just want to make sure that she's taking notes. Like I'm not.
We're in Judy's time. Okay.
The llama isn't on for licensing.
The llama didn't send in an application for licensing.
Oh, she
Okay.
doesn't sell anything anymore.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Larry Kringle. Belleville, 322 North Shore Drive. I want to say something positive for once instead of everything being negative. What I want to say is that the village did a very good job as far as that's concerned, as far as cleaning up. In fact, I even had a person stop me on Main Street who probably thought I was still on the village board to make the comment about how good of a job the Public Works Department did as far as cleaning up in front of their place. I also want to thank Abe and Ian, because I was told that they are also out there working, but they couldn't show up for work the next day because they're too tired.
Take less time.
That's not horrible. I came, but I was useless.
Covered it.
Okay. Anybody else for non-agenda items they wanted to comment on? No? Okay. Next is a consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as the first item after approval of the consent agenda. There are multiple appointments here and multiple liquor license approvals that are listed.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second it.
A motion by Gary, second by Maxine. Any questions or discussion on anything? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Village President's Report. Summer has begun. Music in the Park, I think was successful last week, I believe. We've got another tomorrow night. The farmer's market starts tomorrow. Thank you for Public Works for putting up my message on the village or on the library park sign. Apologies for my autocorrect that it said congratulations instead of congratulations. But if anybody needs to blame anybody, that's my fat fingers, not a tense mistake, unfortunately. So, but no, but I think things are going well. Parks look fantastic. That's all I got.
Cool. So I want to first introduce Riker. Riker's our first youth apprentice. Today was his first day. So welcome, Riker. He's already knocking it out of the park. He'll be focusing more on ordinance. He wants to be an attorney, sports attorney.
Yep.
Anything else you want
I'm happy to be here and I look forward to working with all you guys.
You may see him occasionally. He has 450 hours that he needs to complete before he graduates next May. So he'll be in that. And then our next one, Steve starts next Monday. Okay, so spacing them out a little bit.
Is Steve in here?
He'll be at the.
Oh, at public.
Ken Wolf, our newest public works operator, starting July 8th. I am passing the day-to-day HR stuff off to Maren here soon as we look at public works restructuring and time availability. It was also in Maren's job description that you approved, and so this is beginning to shift that stuff over. Baker Tilly will be doing an audit presentation July 1st. And then starting this year, we're doing annual consultant reviews. It's a chance for the board to be able to ask questions that won't like it to happen. Like when Brian is here, he's usually here for a specific item. and you're really focused on that. This gives you a chance to kind of ask about general services, just questions that you may not get to ask on a normal day-to-day basis. So we're starting with MSA, then Ellers, general engineering, IT, and then staff members. So that's all I got.
I really only had the audit thing and he covered it.
I'm just gonna make another plug for absentee ballots, since those will be going out next week. So if you'd like to vote in the August election absentee, please make sure if you don't already have application in, that you get those in so that we can send those to you and do your duty. What's that?
What's the date of the election?
The date of the election is August 13th, third Tuesday in August. Third Tuesday? Second Tuesday. One of those. Definitely the 13th. Yes.
Okay, when's the fall garbage day? You know
The
what?
fall garbage day is on the calendar on the website, but I think it's late September,
That's like the 21st.
something like that. The 21st is a Saturday. It'd be like the Wednesday after that. I think 24th, 25th, like that. It's on the village calendar on the website.
Thank you.
Sure. What's that? I don't. That's all I have.
The only thing I have is our summer help started last Monday. His name's Ethan. What was last name?
Oh, there.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Tomorrow night, it's the Mad City Jug Band at Music in the Park.
Do they actually play jugs or is they?
I think they do.
If I'm, I don't know if I'm a connoisseur yet.
Exactly.
Thank you. Next, old business. Discuss and consider TID number 3, timeline, feasibility, and draft plan document. And over to you.
I do have a handout that I will give you now. Much of this is summary of what's been discussed at the prior meetings, so nothing new or earth shattering, more or less speaking further on exactly as stated in the agenda, kind of how to move this forward, if that is the desire of the board. Yes, Michelle. Okay.
Thank you.
One more, highest bidder. Or first hand.
Okay, we need that one afterwards for.
Yep. Okay. So if you flip to the first page, kind of our agenda here is again to speak to the amendment feasibility for TID 3. We discussed this last at the May 6th village board meeting. Ultimately, the outcome that would be desirable for tonight is deciding on, the project amount and kind of projects, but by telling us the project amount, that'll kind of tell us the final projects, which I know you've been speaking about since May 6th. So just kind of a final decision on that. And then also moving forward, kind of speaking to, you have an expenditure period come almost end of September this year. And there's kind of an action item in order to have new project costs actually exist within a TID. So there's two parts to this, the amendment and then kind of having those project costs be truly eligible. So we'll kind of walk through those two items. So first we'll speak to the feasibility, and I just kind of wanted to do one slide to make it as simple as possible. Last time I came here with the long chart, right, the cash flows of each scenario. One was under the assumption that no extension is done, so you just use the 20-year maximum life, and that's it. We did an analysis to see how much capital project cost could you include. That amount basically came to 1.85 million. We added, there's like presumed cost of issuance for issuing debt within the TID, and then the additional operating costs that have been discussed So those are all included under no extension. If you do extend the TID, obviously there's more revenue years, more opportunities for additional costs. Under the same kind of financing mechanism, you could afford $4.3 million of new capital project costs. So,
Right.
yeah.
I have a question. So the operating costs, capital project costs plus the operating costs, operating of the financing, not maintenance. So if we build a park, we have to cover the ongoing maintenance costs of that park.
Sure. So that's a great question. Gets a little bit into TID 101. You can only really include operating costs as it's like TIF administration and not, for example, increased services as a result of TIF. So this is actually a lot where we're constantly working with the league trying to get this passed into law. Like if you have a bunch of new rooftops, you need increased fire services. You actually can't pay for that operating cost with TIF. The law would say, yeah, net new construction pays for that. Inflation would say differently. But you can't really include those maintenance costs as a part of it. What was included as the operating costs were more administrative items. And I'm looking here at something that you guys discussed kind of in closed session at May 20th. So you guys talked about this at some point, but and then we had it in the cash flow of additional administrative expenses going towards the TIF, which is eligible under my review, Stafford Rosenbaum's review. Those costs, yep. But not like maintenance, so yeah, good clarifying question there. Obviously, any other questions, but mainly here is if you're gonna kind of look to approve something, the higher the cost value, there should be the expectation that you would need to extend it in order to pay for those things. So that extension can happen the day before the final maximum life. Obviously, that process has some procedure to it, but you don't have to do that immediately with this amendment, but understand you'd be setting the stage and the expectation that you would be extending the district depending on the project amounts.
Right.
Yeah.
The 4.3 million of new capital projects is for the lifetime of the extension, correct?
Yeah, so you're able to extend the debt service, right? So you can afford more principal, and that's why the amount of projects increases.
But it would be paid over the life of the.
Correct. Well, yep, so 6 more years of the district being open.
Okay,
Yep.
that's all I
Yep.
didn't think they could spend it all in 1 year.
Correct, yep. There would be the opportunity, of course, that's a forecast. So, we're pretty reasonable in our assumptions and conservative with our estimates in that we don't have any economic appreciation or new development outside of the known development that's in there. So therefore, any appreciation, which you've been averaging about, it's like 8% in the district, right? That would be added revenue. So essentially you could close the district early, but you don't want to overextend yourself and then actually have a liability that the village is now responsible for. So
At the end.
yep. So that's why we limited our recommendation to kind of the 4.3 plan. And that was all presented in that last May 6th cash flow. So if you're like, I forgot what that was all about, ask Gabe, he can send that information over. If you have questions on that, certainly can walk through it again. But then kind of moving forward, that the next item that I'm going to walk through here is the timeline. This would be, the up and down page that identifies kind of our next step. So by mid-July, in order for this amendment to go through the process by your expenditure period, which is September 21st, we do need to email a notice to your newspaper and kind of have our project plan drafted. And that is why we have this decision point here tonight. That project plan isn't written in a day. So in order to get all the ducks in a row, we would like, some action from the board tonight to let us know that we're moving this process forward, and we can draft that project plan and get that out per the timeline described. So as you'll see here, after July, there will be a series of meetings and other actionable items in order to go all the way down and get this done by September 21st, which is our deadline. So this ultimately is kind of, we're at that decision point, and truly hoping to get some guidance here tonight. Going to the next slide, I'm on the slide that identifies beyond the amendment as its title. In order to be eligible expenses, right, it has to be in the project plan. That's why we're talking about doing the amendment and adding these projects into the tax increment district. So we're going to check that box by doing the amendment in order to have these be eligible expenses. They also have to be a current cost, quote, prior to the expenditure period, meaning you cannot have any new costs after September 21st of this year. So what does the DOR say? You know, the interpretation of the law is that either the physical project is started or one of the following must be in place: establish financing, signed contract, signed developers agreement. Certainly with the proposed development at hand and the potential development agreement there, that would kind of take care of that project. But for these other projects that we're considering, it would be looking to do an established financing, right? Knowing that we may not be able to enter into contracts by September 21st for all the projects we're looking to do. So I shared an anecdote of another community that we worked in where they were doing projects, utility projects, that were going to expand beyond its expenditure period and actually not start kind of 2 years after the expenditure period. What they did is they took out interim financing that basically guaranteed at some point the pledge of this financing is a future financing. So under the law, that's an established financing. So they take out a draw loan and you can then commit kind of to those projects as necessary and not pay interest. You know, you're not receiving all the money at once, so you're not paying interest on it. Take out a draw loan, commit to your projects. Maybe you don't do the projects. Again, putting it in the project plan amendment does not commit you to have to do the projects either. So you could certainly move forward with this amendment at the 4 million, presumably saying we're going to do an extension somewhere down the line, only commit to $1 million of projects, and now we don't have to do the extension, presumably. So again, it's kind of just gauging where we want to be, but understanding that there is another step if you do want these projects to quote unquote be current projects. That's kind of taking out an established financing. So we did talk at the May meeting, and I'm going to expand on here, that we'd issue that drawable note prior to the expenditure period. So on the next slide, we'll kind of talk about those options for that drawable note. We look at the state trust fund loan. That is a state program through the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands that is a drawable feature. Right now, their rates are 6% regardless of the term. However, their debt service is structured, so you get a little less flexibility if you wanted to say, for example, I don't want any of this interest to kick in until, you know, X date, you know, like you did with your sewer revenue bond anticipation note, as a way to say, we don't want any interim payments. We want the long-term financing to pay off the interim financing's principal and interest. So you don't have any interim payments. So if that option is feasible and desirable to the board, I would say avoid the state trust fund loan. Also, the interest rate is meh. And that's a very professional term. There's the RFP to banks or underwriters of, you know, where you could send it to the banks of your choosing or the lenders of your choosing there. We did complete this process with the sewer revenue bond anticipation note. I will show you the results of that process so you kind of get a flavor of what that looks like if you weren't on the board when we did that. But that competitive process, right, the whole theory behind it is no different than bidding a public project on the day of sale. You're saying, give us your best offer, a way to kind of prove to constituents that we've marketed this to the best of our ability with the banks that we were comfortable with. and we received the lowest, term financing terms on that sale date. So again, you did this back in 2022. The other advantage to it is that you're putting forth the structure of the deal, and then the banks are just bidding on it with an interest rate and closing fees. So
Why is there a different principal amount, $2,000 more for People's Bank? Is that covering like load costs?
yeah, so they actually, I'll kind of get to that in a second, but they actually came in with bank fees for closing. Yep. And then the last item on this financing options slide is you could choose to just directly work with one bank. The one thing that I'll say there is, you might reduce your cost of issuance. Generally, for us to help you through the process of the RFP, we charge a little bit more to actually draft that RFP on your behalf. So you may reduce the cost of issuance slightly. But again, it's kind of the questioning, are you sure you're getting the best rate? You have no idea if you're not talking with the other banks. So just kind of a couple of ways to go about that. You really can't go to the municipal securities market for a drawable note generally as a fixed income security, right? They need something for the investor to invest in, i.e. principal. So you generally can't get, a draw feature there. So if the draw feature is truly what you want, generally I would take one of these three approaches to simplify the process, and one of them you're quite comfortable with. The next slide is our bid tab from that sale of the sewer revenue bond anticipation notes in 2022. So what we did was send out an RFP. This was for your water quality trading project, and waiting for the state to close on the long-term loan. We needed funds available to pay for the project before that is ready. That is 100% typical in using that state program. Your long-term financing was 0% interest, so very advantageous to do that. Obviously it just kind of took an interim step. So we did RFP to banks. We asked for an interest rate, and then as well, any closing costs. So the interest rates are kind of, 3 columns in under the rate. 2 of them were pretty close. The one thing I'll say about when we think about just working with one bank versus sending it out to others, what if you work with the one bank who offers a 1% higher and you didn't know you could get a lower rate? So you can just kind of see, we generally term these wild, wild west when it comes to how banks will react, a very professional term as well. But it's unknown to see what each individual bank will do. And kind of what their current interest is in their own portfolio and where they want to put you on their asset sheet. So the other item that I would say is if you look at that total price, you'll kind of know, well, hey, People's Community Bank had a lower interest rate. How come they didn't win? When you look at the total column, because they tacked on costs to close, your total principal and interest was higher. There, so you chose the Bank of Glarus for that interim financing. So again, kind of a way to think about it too when you're going to multiple banks and trying to see the whole package and what banks will offer. There's a benefit to sending to multiple banks, but certainly to your desire, we can just work with one bank. We would recommend kind of doing it as an anticipatory note. The benefit there is that it does not go against your general obligation debt capacity. So if you did have other geo debts to issue in the interim, you wouldn't be penalized with this interim note if it's drafted as a note anticipation note. So again, we likely recommend having your bond counsel involved regardless, because the WBA forms that banks will use are just not suited to kind of outside of scope municipal transactions like this. So.
Brian?
Yeah.
The other 2 banks here, they were prepared to write the note out. Closing costs?
Yeah, Bank of New Glarus and Wintrust did not have closing costs. So the 2 items would kind of be dollar amount, or if you want to identify it by project, you can certainly do that. If you guys feel more comfortable in identifying it that way. We kind of just need the green light to know what projects to put in. to the project plan amendment. And certainly, how you want to move that forward. And then the other item would be just if you want to say we'd like to pursue this financing option for this project plan amendment, that would be a welcomed recommendation because I would just have more time to come back to meetings to kind of explain that process again or go through and we can, you guys can officially choose the lenders you'd like to send it to, et cetera. So the sooner the better on the financing mechanism in my mind as well. And that would have to be included in the project plan anyway. So I see it as all under this one agenda. So with that, we can questions and have discussions.
I have a question. So and I think I'm just verifying this, I guess, but basically if we were doing, we've got all of these various projects that we'd like to potentially do. It sounds like we can still leave all those things on the list with a plan to have an extension and still not do some of those projects. And it doesn't hurt us at all, basically, to do that other than the extra work to basically request and go through that process and the extension of the TID, basically.
Right. I would say your only disadvantage could potentially be the higher the draw amount that you're requiring from a bank. I could see the bank reacting more and more negatively, depending on how long you guys want your no interest, and those are the things we've kind of worked on. But just thinking about it from the financing perspective, I would see there could potentially be a disadvantage there. I can't guarantee that. I don't know what the bank.
It would be the interest rate, it'd basically be the fluctuation.
Right, but you can include it all in the plan and only do one of the projects or none of the projects. You kind of pay for not doing anything, so I wouldn't recommend doing none of the projects if you're going to do the amendment. But you can. It's not an appropriation of funds, not a declaration of we're doing this project. It's what can we do with the TIF money that we have left in the.
And the other question that I have is some sort of on a similar track, but let's say we decided that extension, we just don't want to do that. So we want to
do only projects that total 1.85 million without doing an extension on the TID. The benefit at that point would be that the TID would close on schedule and the village would then get our portion of the tax revenue generated from that district, which is going to be less than what we would get from this if we did this, but we still have to convince the other taxing authorities that this is a feasible thing to do anyway.
Right. So the benefit for closing a tax increment district is one, you've likely paid off all your project costs, so we've accomplished our goals, and that should always be the forefront. So I know it, everybody hears that and they're like, duh, but it should be known, you have to think about we've accomplished our goals. The second benefit is you're now putting those values in your TID out bucket, and your mill rate that property taxes are paid on is TID out assessed value. Tax increment districts, their taxes are kind of generated TID in equalized value and of all the jurisdictions, not just the village. So you'll generally see a healthy allowable bump in levy limits because you get 50% of your value that you've generated in the TID. For this TID is a lot. You get that allowable levy increase, but you get a much greater numerator, if you will, in the value because you're now adding that to TID out. So you can levy a little bit more, but your tax base grows even wider. So you're generally seeing with a big district like this kind of a tax drop. There's revaluations, other things, going on. It may not equal a tax drop, but you do get a wider spread in terms of tax.
But even the tax revenue that's generated from the district post TID is going to be less than.
Right. because you're not getting, now you're no longer getting the other taxing jurisdiction's
Correct.
money. So you get to do less, like you get less of that pot at that time. So the way that it can simply be put in some instances is we should use all of the available dollars that we can get from these other taxing jurisdictions. This is an agreement with them. They have to approve it. So if they do, let's do that. The other thing can be, right, if we feel that we've accomplished all of our goals that we can with this district, then let's close, and move on. So again, that can be even with doing the full vote amendment in terms of project costs. That decision can be made down the road without executing all of that.
So, Dungeon?
Yeah.
So if we decide to put all these projects in, we have a joint review board meeting and they think we're crazy.
Mhm.
Process would be to amend or to come up with a different proposal, or we could come up, take some projects out, whatever, and go back and have another joint review board meeting, correct?
Correct. Yep. They get their, so in that timeline, there's an initial joint review board meeting that right now we would try to schedule for August 5th.
Okay.
As identified there, you'd also have your plan commission public hearing on the same night. And then with amendments, we generally do everything in the same night, but we would have time to kind of adjust if needed. But we would also have the village board reviewing that project plan and adopting the resolution, approving that amendment. So creations, you have to spread it out, but amendments, you can do it all in one night. So right now, we just kind of showed it all doing that in one night. I would say if you felt like, oh no, the joint review board made a lot of changes or desires a lot of changes, again, you don't have to move forward with that. With what they would want, you can just move forward. And if you get enough votes from the joint review board, you're still good. But if you wanted to make, kind of go back, you could table that. We could have a special meeting sometime within that window as described on this timeline and make those amendments that the joint review board recommends.
What kind of guidance do we give?
The opinion, we put them all on.
I agree.
I mean,
We've
it's.
been talking about this for
Yeah,
months.
we've been talking about it. It's not that I necessarily want to, that we're going to complete all the issue is we've got the flexibility. So it's like, we could put them all on there and still prioritize them, and we still have flexibility to take them off. Or again, if the joint review board comes back and says, no, that's crazy, we're not doing that.
I mean, that's the biggest risk is that the joint review board would say you have to go back to the drawing board and change it up, because I understand correct. If we extend the TID and go for the 4.8 or whatever it is as a draw, we're still coming out ahead versus closing the TID. So
On what were the numbers? Do we don't have 4.8 projects, do we? Breaking the three.
I don't. That,
I think if we even talk about the bridge, for example,
Yeah.
that's another.
Yeah.
that was the big.
That's a two.
I think you're at 3.7 with your May 20th discussion
Yeah.
that I have here.
Right.
Additional road connecting from the chiropractor for development. That plus a park. Is there a number of homes, number of parks per homes, or how does that work out for developments?
Are you saying,
Petrie owns that other properties.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Space.
It doesn't have anything to do with this.
Pardon?
This is all the business district west of there. But the park, I think, was already, the $200,000
Yes.
was already in there from before. I think you're right, for the connecting road that was a project. I don't know if that was added as part of the original or not. I know the road to get off of 60 or to get off of 69 in was part of it. I think we added that all in there ultimately, but I think we're still in the I think we're still under the 4.3 for sure.
Yeah.
So hearing as we, the next steps are to move ahead with the plan to use the extended TID. And then we're gonna review one more time our projects and get those projects alert. That,
I think there's two parts. I think in my estimation, I think we'd put all the projects that we had, we would forward that to Ellers. I think that would still be part of the proposal. We might want to review it one more time, see if we missed anything that was there, but I'm pretty sure we have a list that I think part of the reason, I think we talked through it. The reason we didn't make a decision is we we're kind of like, hey, if there's anything else we want to add, like now's the time to do it. And I don't remember anything coming up after that. I think the other part that you're looking for guidance on is like, what financing would we go after? And to me, and again, this is just my take on it, is I think you go for RFP and make it a competitive bid. That seems to make the most sense relative to that, but I'm certainly open to other ideas from.
and then there's cost with you doing the RFP, right?
Correct, yep. That would be sent under separate disclosure. That would be presented to you guys as part of that, yeah.
So do you want a motion or are we just giving guidance?
I guess what would you?
Statutorily not needed. You know, if it's use the full project amounts, that's enough. And the RFP process for the interim financing, that's enough that I need. But statutorily, this is this feasibility portion of the TID creation is just so you have full understanding before you spend the dollars on the administrative. Really don't need a official action item. In my book, it's up to you guys if you would prefer some sort of official action.
Is there anything we're missing? Blatant blind spots that we're like, these guys aren't even asking a question about this, like relative to the way we're thinking about this?
No, I would say when we think about the interim financing, the one thing that I'm going to recommend is we don't wait to have sale day right before your expenditure period. There's always the off chance that you get no responses, right? And that's just all of a sudden the banks are like, we can't do drawable, but they're not good communicators also when it's an RFP process because they don't explicitly always reach out and say why, immediately. So one of my recommendations there is going to be that we actually go with that same August 5th meeting. That'll be a planned sale for the RFP process, meaning we're going to receive our bids. So we'd be back in July to kind of talk about this is the RFP, give the green light to the RFP document and who you're going to send it to. And then you would sell August 5th. The reason for that is if for some reason we get no bids and somebody's like, yeah, we'll do it, but we're going to require that you draw it in full in 6 months and your term sheet just didn't have that. I've had that happen before. And it's like, okay, fine. Well, you make your final draw. Sorry, they don't require you to draw the full amount, but something like that. That we have time to navigate that. So you guys aren't having to have a special meeting the day after or something before September 21st.
So again, how do you select the banks?
What's that?
How do you select the banks for the?
So under the SEC regulations, I cannot explicitly direct you to say issue to this bank or this bank. I can't say one is better than the other. I'm not a dealer. But I can say what communities normally do. And I repeated this from the sewer revenue bond anticipation note process, but work with who you're comfortable with. People always like the local feel. You can also request bidders who have bid on a like transaction in other transactions that we have done, right? So if you're like, hey, I know you guys work with a bunch of Wisconsin municipalities. Can you give us a list of banks within the 5 years, par amount within $1 million of what you're looking for that have bid on a like transaction? We don't care where it is in the state, locale wise, just, give us that list. And then ultimately there's a decision, right? What I would say would be the July meeting of you guys just green lighting that list. And I can't really say, pick this one, not that one, right? And truly, I don't think we should have that position either. So I think it's a good thing. It's just kind of, that's how communities will think about it generally. And certainly the comfort factor tends to always seem to have the highest weight, which understandably so, Billy or whoever it is down at the bank. So
I understand getting it out sooner than later, but it's the joint review board. If the sale date is the 5th of August, right? That's what you said. And that's when the joint review board is meeting. And we need to change the projects and the dollar amount that we're looking at. What happens then?
don't draw on the full amount.
Okay.
Yep.
So it would just be, okay.
Yep. The other thing is we have our standard language does say on sale day, you can change the par amount. Usually we have that in because we don't know what the bank fees will be.
Okay.
Or if there will be any at all. So we just assume like 5,000 for bank fees. But if they come in and everybody puts a $10,000 tab on the thing, we should have the right to increase the par. The same goes for decreasing. So there is language in there that we could say our drawable amount's only going to be 2 million, not 4 million on the day of sale because of the joint review board meeting that happened earlier.
I just want to translate what you just said because I want to make sure. We basically have a loan offer from a bank in hand that would be up to 4.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
If the joint review board comes back and says, no, you can really only utilize 2.5 million.
Yep.
That's a lot of liability for this board, this body, right? If we can't reduce that draw amount.
Well, you're not.
Meaning if we don't have the funding for it from the TID and we've got another 2 million worth of drawable loan.
Mm-hmm.
Am I thinking about that wrong?
What's the liability if you?
Well, it's just
not drawing on it?
We could say, hey, like this board could go spend crazy. Hey, we're going to spend 4 million anyway, but we only have, the TID's only going to cover 2.5 million of it.
Mm-hmm. From that, yeah. The one thing if you wanted to protect it that way, is you could have some sort of internal, appropriation standards that you would follow. Yeah.
I'm assuming we could contact the institution to basically say, hey, I know you were going to give us 4 point whatever million, but cut us off at 2.5 because that's all we've got funding for.
Right. Yep. And you could certainly do that.
I just want to make sure that
a bank wouldn't.
Those guardrails could
that.
be there that we can do that. I'm just again. This board might not, these same members might not be here in 2 years, and you could have somebody that's like, oh, we've got this other vehicle that's still out there that we can draw on, and that would be bad.
Likely not going to be successful with a 2-year draw window, but yes, your theory applies. Yeah. No, theory applies.
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
This question is for Gabe and Ian. So we can borrow this money. We can either go 1.85 million or we can go 4.3 million, assuming that we're going to be approved. How are we going to pay for this?
That's being paid at the TID.
Yeah, the increment generated.
And the TID is going to pay us how? I want to hear this in exact words. How is it going to pay for it?
It's a tax levy. Taxes levied on the properties within the TID are inclusive of the levy for all jurisdictions. So it's the taxes for MATC, for the school district, for the county, and for us. We receive all of the taxes within that boundary. And it changes every year by 8% historically. And that's just appreciation. That's not counting any new development that would happen that would also be taxed at whatever the mill rate is at that point. And so we're
And that money would then pay our loan.
correct. That would pay the debt service on the loan. So there would be zero tax money used from anywhere else in the village to pay for that.
Is that true of both amounts or just the lower amount?
Doesn't matter. And it's true of the debt service that we currently pay on debt projects on TID projects for which we currently have debt on.
The TID transfers, I think it's a little over $100,000 into the debt service fund each year to pay off that year's debt service.
And the cash flow for both of those 4.3 and the 1.85 was in the May 6th meeting. I presented it was a big spreadsheet. So if you want to review that again, I would, they can send you that information again or.
I guess the other safeguard is if the increment at Colt Drive is the biggest one right now. They don't develop as fast as they thought they would or whatever. Like if we don't have the money in the TID to be able to do the project isn't happening. So first we have to get the increment from the TID to be able to do the project. Even if the Joint Review Board says, great, go, you're golden, do the projects. If the projects within that TID currently that's going to make that increment don't do what they're supposed to do, we still can't do the projects. So unless we have the money, the projects aren't happening.
I'll just add too, you have an annual Joint Review Board meeting that at least over the past 2 years, this is a new practice as of the last 2 years. You actually have us come in and update your long range cash flow projection. So one, I think that's helped kind of create these advantageous discussions to see, should we do anything else? But two, if that process continues, right, you have another touch point to say, can we pay for it? The other touch point would be that you're going to need to take out long-term financing at some point, right, for this interim to take off the interim debt. So at some point that principal and interest would be due. At that point as well, you would have another touch point to say, can the TID pay for it? And we'd have passage of time with more data.
If you look at it kind of pound for pound, there are far more hurdles that you have to jump through for any capital projects that are tied to TID than there are any other capital projects.
So your request for also for the banks to be up to a dollar amount, so they understand that it's a draw factor. I get it. So that would work.
Yeah, we're only drawing if we're doing the project, so we're not paying interest out of pocket.
Right.
Is that ridiculous?
My only question about that, the note is during no loan draw. If you draw on the funds, you have to make payments on that draw that year or the following year.
Depends on how you structure it. So that'll be
I've never had.
that'll be a July meeting discussion. But yeah, I would recommend that you delay all principal and interest to like a year and a half from the time that you're going to close on it. So you kind of give yourself that time to figure out how much you're going to draw on, what you're going to execute, but two, kind of see, I would say, where Colt Drive goes, other items like that. You surpass your expenditure period, so you know you can't commit to new projects. And then you're committing to long-term financing, but you have the option to commit earlier if you'd like to as well. Again, that would just right now what's in my head, but you would not have any interim payments due therefore.
The taxpayers would not be levied.
No, there's no cumulative, negative fund balance shown with either the cash flows presented in the May 6th meeting. And it was done so also in a conservative manner. So as to say, like, you should outperform this and be able to close even earlier than both ways presented. Obviously with more runway for earlier closure in the extension method, because you just have years. So if you're outperforming, the longer you outperform, the earlier.
So basically, if we pay off the loan early, right? So if we borrowed 3.7, even though we're extending the period of the TID 6 years or 8 years, whatever the number is, if we paid it off in 4, we could close the TID in 4. And benefit. From the tax revenue that would come in and other stuff, and just the other taxing authorities would also generate revenue at that point.
And truly too, I think that'll be a conversation for a later date, but that'll be the higher the dollar amount and right, depending on the financing options of the long-term financing mechanism, we may be kind of going to more of a unique transaction for that one as well, because we're going to want it prepayable at any time. Generally, the municipal securities market likes a no call period, meaning you can't prepay it till a certain time. So TIF transactions always kind of warrant a little extra. And so you could always go to the state trust fund loan at that point for the long-term takeout, or go back to the same bank and just be like, hey, can we flip this into our long-term? And they'd probably be more than happy to do that. They already put their drawable.
Exactly. They already got the liability out there.
Yeah.
Any other questions at all? Apprehensions? This program. Can you vote on this or?
I think it'd be safe. That way you know where everyone's feeling.
I'll make a motion that we proceed with, or have Ellers proceed with the revising, amending the TIF 3 plan with the projects as agreed on previously. And what was the other part of the financing?
Yeah, if you guys want to move in a direction for the financing mechanism, I think the RFP has been.
Yeah, and to have Ellers draft an RFP for the financing for those projects.
Second.
Motion by Gary, seconded by Mike. You need any more details relative to the projects being proposed and talked about?
I have one question. How do you contact a lot of different banks as to get the lowest interest rate, or how do you do that?
That'll kind of be the discussion for next meeting, and it's up to the village board to determine how many banks you want to go forth with at that meeting. So, yeah.
Okay.
Can we make sure we have one conversation going on at one point? Everybody, Kurt, go ahead.
So we just need to commit on the financing, whether we're gonna extend it to the 4 point whatever, or stick with a lower number. We don't need to commit projects right now.
No, it's all the projects that we're gonna put forward. It's not even 4.3. I think it ends up being like 3.7, but it's the larger.
So all the projects that we've discussed, what we will do is we'll put them all together.
Correct.
And when he comes back in July, we'll be presenting you with the number. Is it 3.7? Is it 4.1? Is it 2? Whatever it is with all that project.
Correct. But to your question, that doesn't mean we have to move forward with all those projects.
Right,
just-
but there might, I mean, that little stretch road there.
That'll be included. What we'll do after this meeting is 3 of us will sit down, make sure all the projects are included going forward. So Brian has a full list of everything you've talked about. And then in July, you will have one more chance to say, this is everything we want to do. It's $4.3 million. Here's the green light, or no, we don't want to do this.
I thought tonight you just wanted a commitment that we were gonna either keep it as is or extend.
my thought there was if you tell me the higher number, that was all the projects, right? If you tell me the low number, I mean, you guys come back and say, say which projects that is, but
So,
it's kind of, just to simplify it in my eyes. That's how I kind of.
Because it's safer to put all the projects in that we have, because to my knowledge, we haven't had anybody say we need to add something else to that after the 5 times they've already discussed the list, so.
just for adding that extra road.
Which
Has been discussed.
was in the discussion in May.
Right, but it's not in the project list. There's only 4 here.
Where's the project? I don't see the project list on it.
Well, proposal 1, a community development director. Number 2 is the trail system. Number 3 is the new park, and number 4 is marketing and promotions on the side.
What
What are you looking?
are you looking?
looking at?
I'm looking at TID 3 projects.
From what though? It's not the handout that he gave, because there's no projects that are listed in the handout.
I'm back in my notes. January 16th.
May, we discussed this.
We've had a lot of projects, I guess, added since then. That was the initial conversation. We have an ongoing list of everything that you guys have said we want to put in there. That's what Brian will be doing. We have every list. We have all the projects already written down.
You can resend that list to me then.
Yeah, I can send it to the whole board.
You could take, because it includes the park, it includes the connection from 69, it's a trail
Yeah,
system.
remember,
It's a bridge potentially to the north side from the trail system. I think it
Yeah.
includes the road that you're
the
talking about.
welcome
is in there.
signs, the
The
marketing.
welcome signs, marketing stuff is in there.
There's
There's about 6 or 8 things in there, I think, total.
Okay, so we've got a motion made by Gary, seconded by Mike, with for essentially all projects talked to up to this point and pursuing RFP process for financing. Let's do a roll call on this one if we could.
Okay. Trustee Baden.
Yep.
Campbell.
Yes.
Esmar.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Ziegler.
Yes.
Jervis.
Yes.
Marson.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Sorry?
I'll see you Wednesday.
Oh, gotcha. Next is,
Could I just?
sorry, sorry,
Didn't
Jenna.
ask to speak or.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, okay, all these projects, but after they get all done, what's the projection for what it is gonna cost us?
For
For whatever you're doing, whatever these projects are,
what do you
like
mean?
these parks that, because you mentioned a park.
Okay, so the
So-
park is the West Side Park in the West Side neighborhood to buy land to have a park for that neighborhood.
But we're gonna have to maintain it.
Sure.
So has anybody projected anything for each project and what that's gonna be for the taxpayer when it's all finished?
Maintenance.
I don't think we've gotten that far in the process yet, no.
Guess I need to know what all those 18 projects are. So I see where.
It's not
where it
18,
will
it's about
fix.
6 or 7. One of them is a road to connect 69 into Petrie's development off of that. So, yeah, I mean, there'd be potentially plowing snow
Public
and
Works.
maintenance that, but
Yeah.
I don't think that would be significant generally speaking.
One's gonna be added anyways.
Correct.
So,
Right, it'll happen one way or the other. This just makes it more financially efficient. A park, again,
I think at some point it is gonna affect us.
yeah, but I don't know that we're buying acres and acres of land that's gonna be mowed or anything like that. We're talking about a park that's the size of 2 residential lots, so it's not. I don't think it's a huge burden necessarily to mow that, but like. Certainly we could consider, absolutely need to consider those things, right? If there's a trail mechanism, maintenance of a trail mechanism needs to be considered as part of that, but again, I don't think there's. From stuff that we've talked about, I don't think it's huge maintenance requirements for anything that we've talked about. But it's a valid question, for sure. Any other questions or comments on that? Next is discuss and consider strategic planning foundations.
So the homework from last meeting was to prioritize that long list. I have now taken that. So the reason we're doing this is so I can know what do you care about? What do you want to see done? And now from that, I can prioritize what is staff focusing on 24, 25, 26, and 7, 8. And so there's 5 boxes right now that are yellow. That is our top priorities as a village based on your comments. So priority 1 is develop a master plan for Sugar River and Community Park. That's to start in 24. The Parks Committee is already ahead of budgeting for some of the engineering costs for making sure all the water and all that stuff is good for whatever we design, but that doesn't mean we can't start at the next meeting to say, all right, here's a big map. What do residents want? Having those town halls, mapping everything out. We don't need engineers for that. What we'll need them for eventually is to make sure everything fits right, make sure runoff is okay, like the engineering stuff that we can't do in-house. But to know we want to put a playground here, to know we want to put a bandstand there and all that kind of stuff, we don't need engineering for that. And we can start that right away. So master planning for Sugar River and Community Park, the village trail system would start later in 26. Community engagement, we'll talk about streaming meetings on YouTube today. That was ranked number 1 from you all. Belleville Citizens Academy, start that in 25. You guys also very highly prioritized increased beautification efforts. So CDA is already working on this, but it's update property maintenance standards, code compliance ordinances, light remediation, and facade grant. All 3 things that the CDA is asking for permission to. So, hey, that's great. The CDA is on track with what you have asked or want them to do. You also prioritized holding working meetings with the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, business retention engagement visits that we've already done 3 of, and developing a youth apprentice program, which is already in place with library program opportunities for jobs and job creations. So those were the top 5 things that you said that you want to see done starting in 2024. So from here on out, I guess, unless there's any comments going on, that is what staff will be making sure we focus on besides the day-to-day stuff. One thing that I would like from you to do is pick one subsection from the next 2. That way I am working in one area, but one of the 5 focus areas. My recommendation to prioritize is number 4 in the 4 focus area, invest in multimodal transportation. That's because we're working on the safe route to school. So be able to take that across the finish line, develop the bike ped plan that we can do in-house, develop sidewalk replacement program.
So, sorry, Gabe, where are you talking about?
So focus area number 4.
And then what number?
Number 4.
Number
4 and 4. We've already started process 1 with the safe routes to school. I would like to go to the next steps in that. It's the next kind of conscious decision-making process. And then for focus area number 5, I would like for you guys to put number 2, impact fees, as for number start on that. You ranked it as a number 5, started in 2025. I'd like to start in 24 and make that the top priority in that sense.
Got it. So what you're saying is for these sections, there wasn't
You didn't prioritize anything to start right away.
anything. Got it. Okay. So what you're saying is for 4,
For section 4, is there a specific item?
Just start on that, which would then go
Or just
to
all 4 of those 4 collective things beneath that
pretty
would
much.
be part of that?
Yep. And then for number 5, for focus area
number
5,
2.
number 2.
Does everybody understand what Gabe's talking about?
So for
So hold on a second. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page first.
So on the second.
So on the second page, on the middle one that has 3 different sections to it,
Okay, yeah.
the 2 bottom ones don't have a yellow section, so we didn't collectively vote and prioritize those. So on the first one, which is, if you look closely, is focus area number 4. That's the middle box right here. This focus area number 4. The
Okay.
4th item is what Gabe is saying, which is invest in multimodal infrastructure and services to improve mobility, safety, and connectivity. Gabe is asking that we use that as our top priority for 2024 for that section.
Okay.
And then for the 5th section, so the bottom one on that same page, the second one, impact fees, which that's exceptional services and governance.
Impact fees and the 3 sections underneath that
That is what he's proposing would be for 2024. Is that?
Yep, which is because what we're already working on, like, you're gonna see the urban forestry, you're gonna see things like that, so we're already working on. Yeah, and that's kind of it. Everything else, we'll still be working on the day-to-day stuff, but these 5, 6 areas, that's what we're caring most about. That's what the board is putting its attention to, that's what we're focusing on. And most of these are residents can, I think the big thing too is we've done a lot of stuff internally, which has solved a lot of our problems, help us kind of get going a little bit better, smooth processes. And I know there's still a lot to go, but I think residents are eager to start seeing that progress happen. Where are we showing? What are we doing? A lot of this is we can start showing that right away with these 7. So that's what I'm asking for you guys to do. For that, go.
No, it got answered. So.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else have comments or questions or disagree on any of those items? Because obviously, although Gabe asks for stuff, we don't always have to give it to him.
My comment is I agree with the items. I've been hearing lots about safe routes for schools for 3 years almost now, and it's time to get something moving on with that, I hope.
With the parks plan. I agree.
And, impact fees are a way for us to generate revenue. So I like the idea of fees for everything, but we do have to pay for things.
And with the impact fees, it's, we present everything, we get the stuff done. Doesn't mean you have to approve it. It just means that's the project that we're working on. Right, you can cross off the list. It's either a yes, we want to do it, or it's a no. And if it's a no, then that's great. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can focus on the next. That's what I need from this. Yes, let's do it, or no. Done with that. Let's move on to the next.
You need a vote on this at all?
The song, I would like that. That way, all of you are kind of on the same page like we did with the TID. And then from here, I'll make a pretty document with the strategic plan. You'll approve it, and we are off to the races.
So I will make a motion to highlight or focus on focus area number 4, item 4, invest in multimodal infrastructure and services to improve mobility, safety, and connectivity, and the 4 sub implementation steps referenced for that section, and to add focus area number 5, exceptional services and governance, impact fees, and the 3 implementation steps associated with that as a 2024 focus item for that focus area.
Along with the other highlighted ones, right? What you're saying?
Yes, correct. Yes, along with the previously mentioned highlighted items on different stuff. For discussion,
Are we going to be voting on each one of the individual things that go along with these?
So implementation steps are more of for staff to know, how are we accomplishing that? So like for strategy, for the top one, focus area 1, stable identity for number 1, enhanced park amenities. How we accomplish that is by developing a master plan, and then village trust system. If we accomplish those 3 things, that is a success. We've accomplished number 1. So that's what implementation is.
I think her question is more, and I'm gonna go at it from a slightly different angle, but I think that Maxine's asking is, are we gonna say, how are we gonna focus on some of the items that are not highlighted, right? And I guess my, is
I'm
that,
talking about the ones he's mentioning. I mean, like, for example, let's see, where does it say? Oh, the impact fees, review fees for community development, public works, parks, and utilities, 1. Review fees for business licensing and permitting, blah, blah, blah. And 3, annual review of all fees during the budget process. So are we gonna be working on each individual one? Because
well, those steps are gonna occur throughout
we
the
still
year that they're
have
gonna.
urban forestry, and we talked about it, but I don't think any consensus to say that we're gonna go ahead with that was approved.
But that's just process.
That's just the process. That's part of it. So it'll be,
I see.
you guys are telling me I want to work on strategy number 2. These are the things that I'm going to be working on in that.
Okay.
So it's meant to be broad. It's supposed to give us a little bit of flexibility. It's also to say, and it's really allows residents to know, how are we doing? What is the progress? What is the status? It allows you to hold me accountable to say, all right, Gabe, these are the 6 things we tasked you to work on. This is it, and it allows me to track staff to say, all right, this is the board's opinion. Now this is what we got to do. So it's more of a mechanism tool to keep us accountable and say, and that's part of what strategic plans do, is it gives us that order number of, this is when we're doing it. That's the priority. This step happens before this step, because a lot of things in here tie into others, and you can't do one before you do the other. And so that's kind of what those numbers are, is you need to do this first before you do.
Okay. Understand.
The other questions or comments? I have one that's not really impacted relative to the vote we're gonna take, but I'll mention it afterwards. So. All right, so we got a motion to approve the 3 selected highlighted sections and then the 2 others that.
There's 5 highlighted.
Oh, there's 5 highlighted. Yeah, I'm sorry, 2. Yeah, so 5 highlighted and then the 2 additional items. They're grouped together, so they would fit. So 5 highlighted items and then the 2 additional sections for each focus area 4 and 5. So motion by me, seconded by Gary. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. The only thing I would ask, Gabe, is obviously you compiled the tallies. Is it possible to either get the raw counts or to get like just the collective report together to say, oh, here's kind of what was next in line, or like do that stuff. So which doesn't impact this, but that would be helpful. Okay, next item, discuss and consider the public works operational structure.
So as you all know, we've had a little bit of a fun time hiring for a public works director. has not been successful. We had the failed search, first time search that brought in the two candidates. Neither one met the qualifications. We didn't do the process with them. And I've been talking to administrators, talking to our consultants, talking to staff. It's become apparent that it's really not where Belleville is. I think we're asking for too much in one position with little pay when they can go to other municipalities that aren't too far away to make more. I don't think that's not a dig on you at all. I think that's just the nature of the beast. A lot of municipalities are having a hard time doing it. And so to be able to get what we need to get done, I am recommending a structural change. It is actually removing the Public Works Director's position, creating two divisions within Public Works. You have the Utilities Division and the Public Works Division. So I have two staff members already assigned to each. So Tom will be the Utilities Superintendent. Greg will be the Public Works Superintendent. The three of us have already discussed this separately and together as a group. They will assist me. I will make kind of the bigger overall decision-making bodies. But the three of us will be that team kind of managing Public Works. The two of them will work on scheduling, evaluations, what is the priorities, all of that. Tom will take the full lead on utilities. That is expertise. That is what he's passionate about. That is what he will take the management of. Greg will handle the Public Works part of it, cemetery, parks, streets. The two of them will work together to prioritize things together, say this needs to happen, this needs to happen. Jim is not disappearing, but Jim's position was not a forever position. We needed to come up with a solution. And my goal is to limit Jim's necessity for it. He's going to teach Greg and Tom some of the things that they may not feel comfortable with, get them up to speed on some of the managerial stuff, and then be the one who's managing processes. That is really why we hired him in the first place, is to sit down with both of them, sit down with the three of us, sit down with the Parks Committee and write down processes for almost everything, not almost everything that we do. So Greg and Tom will work together for, I should say, cemetery mowing. The two of them with Jim will mark down everything that needs to happen. Here is the standard for it. This is the expectations for it, because that way, none of you should ever, unless you see them, should ever know who's the one doing that work. The work should be done the same way, the exact same time, regardless of who's doing it. That's the standard that we need to set. So that's what they are going to be working on. Does that make sense? So how this will work is Mondays and Fridays, I will have a team meeting with the three of them to say, what are the priorities for this week? What are you working on? What's big's happening? What do I need to know? And then on Fridays, what's the big stuff happening next week? What do I need to know? What's going on? Because Friday but Monday, things change. What do I need to know? What do I care about? And stuff like that. And then each morning, I'll probably step down there. What's going on? How's things going? Just checking in. We had our first kind of staff meeting the other day, and Tom already made a good comment. He said, when we look at these subdivisions, instead of plastic piping going to the house, we need to do copper. I didn't think about that, but with the heat, the swelting, the movements, we had changed our standards back to plastic. We should change them back to copper. I didn't think about it, but that's the things that I need from them. I need Tom to really focus on utilities because he knows that. And I need that shouting in my ear. And I need Greg shouting in my ear on the other stuff. And when you have one person doing all of it, something's going to be missed. And so now you have two specialized people telling me what needs to happen. Yeah, might fumble along the way. We might, stumble, but I think it is a worthwhile process. And eventually, those become two directors. You have a public works director and you have a utilities director. Those should be separate anyway. The funds are separate. Staffing is separate. All of it is already separate in everything except manpower. So just eventually work towards that. We're not in a hurry, but eventually that's kind of the end goal. The director will go then down to an operator. The operator will then be 2 superintendents and 3 operators. So you'd have 5 as a crew. So you're not adding a staff member right now, or you're just kind of shifting duties. I'm not going to be mowing or plowing or anything like that. They'll have the 5 to do that. I'll be there to provide guidance.
Are you really gonna be able to take on another?
That's why I'm shifting all the HR stuff to Maren. Obviously, I'm still the personnel director. Big things still come through me. I still supervise everything. I still have my signature on all this, but by having two individuals who I can lean on, where Tom is gonna get all of his licensing, Greg is gonna handle the other stuff, I think it is doable. It is not the forever long-term solution, but it is that couple year solution that will work.
So I guess you kind of answered the question, but so this is a temporary solution.
Yes.
Eventually, so you're proposing that eventually, instead of a public works director, we would have two directors,
Yeah,
two, whatever we're gonna call them down the road.
because it's,
That's on the department. And take that burden off to you then. It's the, right?
and really not much is changing. I sign off on things. Jim is not disappearing, so Jim can still be that guidance. That third point, he still agreed to come to night meetings occasionally, go to committee meetings. Greg and Tom have agreed that they'd go to the committee meetings that they would have to go to. We've already kind of worked through that and, yeah, I think Deb, that's a great comment on my availability. I don't foresee it a ton because I'm setting the expectation now. You're not gonna see me mowing every day. I'm not plowing. That's not my role. My role is to be able to give the administrative guidance, manage the department on the top level, and let Greg and Jim or Tom manage that middle level to get things done that we just haven't been able to do.
So then is Tom going to be able to do the reports that MSA is doing now?
Eventually, he's gonna have to learn, and I think he's willing to do that. It's gonna take some time. He doesn't have all the licensing yet, so MSA still is gonna have to be around for a little while until Tom can get everything that he needs to get. But then that will scope down MSA's involvement, and we've already budgeted for more engineering costs, so if there's something that Tom can't do, MSA can do.
How many more licenses does he need?
Two or three. He's got all of water. He needs about one. There's a lab one, and there might be one more.
It's two or one, sure.
Second. You had your hand up.
What about her? Getting all that shoved on her.
What about?
Clerk's office has capacity to take on HR and I have a certificate in HR, so I can take it on. It's fine. That's not gonna be very much more than paperwork than we shuffle already.
It's like with the onboarding, making sure their W-9s are right, their I-9s, W-4s, W-T-4s, making sure everything's put away where it's supposed to, benefit administration. A lot of it's stuff that's just ongoing paperwork as necessary. But we also, the board hired Maren knowing that this was going to happen. This is just speeding up that process. Maren was hired knowing this was going to happen. So this wasn't, we had planned this, we're just speeding that process up.
Infrastructure streets. So in other words, if we have an issue with infrastructure in the street that deals with water and sewer, Tom would be the person that would deal with that. Am I right?
If it's a water utility, yeah. If it's anything utilities, Tom is it. If it's anything streets, parks, brush pickup, yard waste, cemetery management, leaf pickup, drop off, all of that, that's great. And then really, three of us are working together, so.
So the project that's coming up, or we have one coming up here, up there that deals with the water flowing down the street. That supposedly is getting fixed. No, there's one up here, Harrison or
No, off of Harrison.
off of Harrison. Because the sidewalk was going on their lawn, the water was running down their lawn.
Yeah.
That's been taken care of already.
Okay, that's
It
good.
doesn't run in that house anymore? Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Terry.
Well, he's gonna be right in town.
Official.
I thought exactly the same thing. That's what Deb mentioned. That's the amount of responsibilities that Gabe might be taking on and whether or not that's going to work very well. But then hearing that this is really going to be a temporary thing, then hopefully that's not going to drive him off quicker than he's going to be leaving.
They get rid of me. Oh, no.
The second thing, how many public works people do we have now?
Well, we have 5 budgeted. The director, 4 hours.
How many physical people do we have?
Now you have 4.
One. And that was my other concern, is the fact that going in this particular direction, now we're gonna be short one. And for a period of whatever time, it sounds like you may be looking for another public works person.
None. So that's the caveat. We stole one from New Glarus today. I have another candidate that has asked, who already working at New Glarus. He filled out an application. We will set up that interview. And we also have the summer help that has expressed interest to taking on a full-time job here. So if you guys approve this position tonight, I'm fairly confident I'll be able to fill that in.
So anyway, I mean, after I read this, it makes a lot of sense to move in this particular direction. Again, I'm still concerned about personnel, number of personnel that we have, and whether we're gonna be able to meet the responsibilities that they have. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, I think was mentioned earlier, and for those of you that take the paper, there was a very good article in the paper about municipalities, Oregon, and was an example, being in exactly the same position of being able to keep personnel. They're having exactly the same problems. And of course, one of the things that was wrong with that article was the fact of having to have a referendum because they need more money. For personnel primarily, but there was other things. Thank you.
My only issue with all of this is you. You don't have an engineering background, so how are you gonna deal with MSA on that cul-de-sac over there by Dam Bar, and they need that big tank or need whatever else? I mean, you're gonna be like us.
It's the same thing I would have to do anyway. Neither one of our directors have either, none of them. And so or have had, so that's what we're leaning on engineering for. That's what they're there for. They provide their recommendation. So nothing's changing in that sense.
But my biggest thing is, Harry alluded to, your burnout. It's a lot of responsibility. And there's a lot of expectation with what we have going on with all these projects here that need to be tended to. And that's my only thing right there. I don't know.
I appreciate the
lot
that shows.
You gotta have balance. If you don't have balance, you're no good.
Yeah, no.
As administrator or as public works.
So
that's just the reality.
Kind of where I appreciate the concern. I think that shows quite a bit. Like I said, you're not seeing me plowing. You're not like those of day-to-day stuff. I'm not doing. I'm doing the stuff that is making sure the reports are filled in, making sure everything's going right, working with Tom and Jim or Greg on that. Jim is still around.
But that still takes time.
It still takes time. My other problem is I don't know if there's another option. I've been racking my head. I've been talking to administrators, consultants. I can't come up with another one unless we find magical money that we just don't have. He's on the committee, so we still have the public works guy.
About you taking on this opinion. Probably helpful to know. I appreciate what he has to say since he wasn't doing it for. There's things I know that you're gonna have to do that I don't even know what would be required, but somebody like that would, I mean, Dan knew a hell of a lot about a lot of stuff that.
Well, that's kind of where Greg and Tom are having to take the leadership roles on a lot. Because I can't handle it all, but that's why we're paying them a little bit extra. That's why they're taking the leadership duties. That's why the establishment is working, I'm leaning on Tom to tell me, there's a utility thing, what am I supposed to do? What is my best advice? And if he doesn't know, we go to engineering, 3 of us work together. And the same thing with Greg. If Greg doesn't know something, we work with engineering, the 3 of us together, make a recommendation.
Does Greg have any experience other than Corey?
Consulting or contracting work, that kind of stuff, the stuff that he would be doing, yes. But like pacer ratings, no, but that's driving around judging with your eyeballs, what is the best, what's the street quality?
So you have Tom as utility director and Greg as public works director.
They're superintendents.
Pardon?
Superintendents.
Superintendent, same thing, in my opinion. What is Jim then?
Jim's going to provide guidance, help them along the way, attend board meetings, kind of act as a consultant like we hired him to originally. be able to bounce things off, what is the best route, working on those processes and procedures. The thing that we brought him in to do the first time, and then we roped him in.
So will they be responding, will Tom and Greg be responding to you or Jim? To you?
Mhm.
Okay.
They're not department heads, so they are still learning that in. But yeah.
Connie, you had a question?
That's you.
Anyways, now I did read that, I don't think I understood it, but that they're gonna get a pay raise, but it's not gonna affect. What did I read that? $120,000.
So yeah, the director's role is $120,000 in itself. 85 of that is going to the operator's position with benefits, wages, all of that, max everything. That way we have room in the budget for it. The 10,000 will go to Greg and Tom's increase for taking on the administrative duties. And then the rest will go to engineering.
And the rest will go where?
Engineering.
MSA.
That makes sense. So we had allocated money for a director role.
Yeah.
We're obviously not filling a director
Oh,
role.
I got it.
So that, all of the funds,
Really
that was salary, benefits, all that stuff.
If we got it.
If we got a director, we're not gonna have that. So instead, we're gonna basically elevate these two guys to superintendents.
Okay.
Or potentially, elevate these two guys to superintendents. They'll get a pay raise. There's money left over from that, so we can actually get another operator full-time. And then there's still money left over from that would go towards engineering, because we're gonna need to lean on MSA or continue to lean on them for services that they're providing now, because we don't have all the certifications to do all that sort of stuff.
And maybe some of that is gonna go like, Greg will have a phone, Tom will have a phone, just as I do. And so like, Tom is already one of the first people to be called at a utility issue anyway. That's not changing. He's just gonna fill me in on the next morning to say, hey, we had a major issue. Here's what happened. You'll fill me in. So like nighttime, like I'm not getting more calls, like the basic stuff, yeah, is gonna be more, but if we have to readjust, then during my evaluation, we can readjust and we can do a status update.
But, I mean, I would make a motion that we do this and review it in 6 months just to see where we stand, but I do have a couple other things that I think that should be part of the motion, that's what I'm saying. We review it in 6 months just to see how things are going here.
Like,
So from your perspective, Gabe, your workload is net zero roughly?
If I'm able to offboard all of the HR stuff to Marin, yeah.
And Maren, you're okay with taking on the HR duties?
Yeah, I have a deputy who can take more of the clerk stuff, so I can take more of the HR stuff.
Have enough capacity?
Yeah, I believe
We're not
that.
gonna need overtime hours. Either one of you is gonna come to us at the end of the year expecting a bonus or something for additional duties.
Good question.
I'm just trying to cover all the bases, so.
Nobody's gonna hit us up for more money out of the crew sitting.
there's never an assurance that's not gonna happen.
We're not, I'm not gonna say no,
Right.
but no, it's not.
There's just been some experiences in the past.
I understand the past.
Forced me to ask that.
The past precedent, and I would just say that definitely avoiding being anything like that. So
And my contract is, and I'm already a special case other than other employees. I present list of my raise that I want for next year. You guys make a determination if it's high, if it's low, it's the same. Like mine is already very big. I think that's the person you're worried about the most. And so ours is already a negotiation.
already,
So in other words, this person, the new one, the new Glarus you hired, his first name is
Ken is a Belleville resident.
Betty and,
Well, no,
He is a Belleville resident, very eager to get on board, passed the background check, passed the reference checks. Yeah, so I'm excited to be able to have him.
Someone's actually coming from the Glarus.
Instead of them, they take our cops, so we'll take their public works.
If you approve this, and we have a new operating position, Another one.
His name is,
Well, I've already talked to Lauren. She's already met him.
his name is?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's haven't been hired yet.
I haven't told Lauren his name yet.
Not the one that left, okay, left here and went there.
I'm saying same thing.
What?
You have not been,
Here, that's it.
I'm not married to her.
I know that, but you learn from being married.
This is business. If I'm taking somebody, we're taking
All
somebody.
right.
They've taken how many of our people?
3.
I'm taking it back.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking other things back, not this.
So I will say this about the plan is Gabe and I have talked about this, like I am concerned about the workload that you'll have, but I agree. I think we'll check in on this. I think that's gonna naturally happen anyway. As long as I've been coming to board meetings, not just been on the board, I constantly hear about gaps in lawn mowing, cleaning up brush, plowing snow, everything else. And I don't think since I've lived here, we've actually been fully staffed in Public Works for maybe longer than a month or two, maybe. And I don't even think at that point that it was probably, I don't think there was a great synergy in Public Works at the time, even if they were fully staffed. Probably the best way to put it. I honestly think, and I think that was part of the reason why I went over to Jim right before the meeting, but I actually think that we've got a really great crew right now. I think they're operating together as one quite well. I think, Kurt, your questions are valid, relative to Gabe not necessarily having some of that expertise, but I mean.
And you're gonna have to create. Sorry.
I
thought you're done.
No, what I was gonna say is Tom at one point was, I think, considered for a director role, so he certainly has tons of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge, that I don't think Tom is gonna be that's not my job type of thing if he's got inputs relative to studs for streets. And similarly, I don't think any of the other guys are gonna be, that's not my job if there's areas where they need to help with utilities stuff. And I hope that we continue like fostering that type of camaraderie and unification across the team. I'm actually optimistic about it. I think it's a thinking a little bit outside of the box in terms of the structure, but I also, to your point, Gabe, I don't know that we've got other alternatives. It's like, unless we want to reach out to the guy that was in Egypt.
Well,
Probably not.
If we want somebody with the engineering experience and all that kind of stuff, we're gonna be looking at well into 6 figures
Right.
just for a salary
Right.
without benefits, so.
And then we're short, then we're down,
Yeah.
we don't have staffing again.
Right.
So and all the projects, tons of the projects that we're talking about doing and putting on the plate are gonna be Public Works intensive projects, right? They are not necessarily gonna be doing all the heavy lifting, but there are gonna be maintenance things that are required for that. And I'd rather err on the side of more guys than fewer. So.
And I do have the experience before here. I was almost hired. I interviewed actually for the Deputy Public Works Director in Cottage Grove. They found out I had a master's in a different thing and they hired me for a different program. I also worked at a water utility for a year. And I called in very frequently while we're having conversations on utility rates and all that kind of stuff, because I have the best water district in my pocket that I call. So we have resources, and that's also why we're upping engineering. We're gonna have to use it, but we have the money for it. It's what they're there for. Rely on them. It's really the only other option. The other one is to make no changes, recruit as we are. It's gonna be a hard road. You're not gonna be happy with anybody. For GovHR, what we have paid is what we paid and we're done. As with this motion, you would close that out. I would sign the last thing. We don't know anything else, so we'd be done. And then the only thing is, in their thing is they guaranteed a director if one didn't work out. This is going that is, you're agreeing that it's over with. There is no liability on them. Yeah, or the other option is to increase the salary and continue to recruit.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Public Works and Utility Organizational Chart as outlined in the memo from Gabe dated today.
So motion by Gary, seconded by Deb.
Let's review in 6 months.
Well, we would do a review in 4 because that's when I'll do my annual evaluation.
And Kurt, did you have a comment? I didn't mean to stop you.
I'm just thinking that it needs more than just day-to-day operations. You need to create a depreciation schedule for all the equipment. You need to know what, you need to know what tools need to be replaced in there. That place is a mess.
Well, that's not to me.
An absolute mess, and there's no records because Public Works Director threw all that crap away, which is really disappointing, but.
And that's why we're paying Greg and Tom more to be able to do that work for them. Like, that's not, like, that's why we're giving them more. That's why they now have oversight in things. They're the ones who are doing it day to day. If I'm gonna say we need a new truck versus a new tractor, I'm gonna go to them to say, which do we need more? I have my opinion, but I don't know. I'm not there.
I know, but you need to rely on people that know that equipment.
And the two of them would. And Jim is still here. And the Public Works Committee is still here. Jerry Butts is still on it.
Like,
And Ian's already, I mean, you've already started a inventory list, and depreciation may not be everything on there, but at least for the big stuff, you've already started that, so.
Or was able to pull from different records.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak for Jim, but I think, Jim, that's kind of the wheelhouse that you were planning to kind of be in initially anyway, right? Is sort of the
Special projects and organizing stuff, no? Or my, and so.
He's not leaving.
So
We're just.
Jim, I mean, and Jim, I always say thank you, but I definitely appreciate all your efforts. I know you, like, you're not only above and beyond what we ever asked to do, but I know you show up all the time doing stuff that we don't ask you to do. But that said, I mean, like, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to stay on and continue to do some of that stuff, but hopefully it's a little bit less and not necessarily as much physical stuff as much as it's sort of like, hey, let's tap into your expertise and your know-how and knowledge. But again, I think you end up kind of being Gabe's right hand as a consultant to say, hey, we need to create a depreciation schedule. We need to figure out what's the priorities of what we need to do and to go to. And I think that's super helpful, this structure. So
This motion does not necessarily approve the job descriptions as part of, that should really be a separate motion, right? Okay, because I have some corrections that we need to make on those, so.
Judy first.
I do a separate motion.
Just an FYI, Baker Tilly does have depreciation schedules on all our infrastructure and all our equipment. They already do it every.
That's an accounting depreciation schedule. What I'm talking about is like can we still use this for, what's the depreciation from a life usage schedule, right? Not just, meaning, are we gonna be able to keep driving this mower in 5 years? It's already off the financial depreciation schedule. It's not worth anything. But are the wheels gonna fall off next year?
It's fully depreciated.
I'm sure it's fully depreciated from an accounting standpoint, but I think that's kind of where I'm thinking of anyway.
So in other words, replacement schedule.
Yes. Terry.
I just want to emphasize the point that this has been discussed for years, and this position that Village is in right now has actually pushed us to this point that we really need to get this done.
If there was another option, I'd be going for it.
Any other questions or comments at all?
I think you could probably since it's agendized, as a restructure of Public Works, I think if you could work the job description into the motion, I think you'll be fine, but you
Yeah, so work the job descriptions into the motion.
Motion, so it's not a bad idea to amend the motion.
So
Are we looking to, like, because Gary's asking for revisions of the job, is it?
well, they're just minor.
Okay,
I mean, I can tell you what my concerns are that I talked to Gabe about this before. I think we need to put in here that two positions will attend meetings as needed. I didn't see that in here. I looked through them both twice. So, what specific meetings? Obviously, utilities will come to Public Works, utilities and facilities and utilities, and the other position will probably go to Parks, but they both have to come to a couple of those meetings at a time. So I think as needed in there. And then on the Public Works Superintendent, the third line, end of the second line and the start of the third line, it says the Public Works Foreman is the Public Works. So it should be Public Works Superintendent.
Yep, I'll make that change.
Those were the two things that popped out of my mind right away. Otherwise, I think, again, these are new positions, they're living documents. I think, when we do the review, the committee should review both these at some point and make sure that's exactly what's actually going on, so.
That was my question is, did you want to take those to committees before you approve the position documents, or do you want to just do it all tonight?
I'd like to do it all tonight so we can make our moves.
So I'll amend my motion to include approving the Public Works Superintendent and the Utilities Superintendent position, your job description with the
Corrections?
corrections.
Second.
Gary seconded by Mike. Deb, you had a question?
Okay, so it says the 10,000 will go for raises for the two. Is that 10,000 being split amongst the two, or each one is gonna get 10,000?
I think it's
$2 an hour, which is 5,000 each.
Okay.
And then, are you gonna have a time frame for Tom to get the remaining licenses?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. First of the year.
Well, it depends on when the classes are available and the tests are available, so.
So he has two classes. How many,
Got all but two.
how many,
Needs about 2 more.
Tom does, but what about Greg?
Greg is not gonna be required to get the licenses. He's got a lot of other stuff on his plate that he's taking charge of, and so
His position doesn't need licenses?
he is more than welcome to incentivize and get them. That is still available to him.
For all
For all of them, except Tom. Tom is not. He has required to get them, but his pay bump is already on top of his incentive. So like he is not allowed to get any more. Like he doesn't get any more incentives. His salary will be built. That'll be built into his.
Say that one more time, that last sentence.
Tom will not be getting incentives anymore because it'll be required for his job.
He's gonna continue to get the incentives he has, but he's not eligible for additional incentives from.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all like the amount that we incentivize is built into his new salary.
His new pay rate.
Pay raise. He's not a salaried, they're not salaried employees, they're hourly. But it's still their salary.
And he's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so first is the amendment to add the two job descriptions with the corrections. That was made by Gary, seconded by Mike. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that makes the motion to adopt the new structure of Public Works and Utilities according to the memo that Gabe sent out dated today with those job descriptions as well with the suggested edits. And for that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So those pass.
And I'll close out the WHR contract.
Yes. Okay, next is new business, discuss and consider park impact fees.
So we already went through this with Parks and Forestry Committee. It gets a little complicated, but basically we're charging fees that we can't charge anymore. And the reason we can't charge them because they're outdated. So if we want to continue to charge them, we need to, in a timely manner, we need to update and pass some fees. And so the fees that we had were based off of the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan for 2007. They're impact fees, so they're anticipatory fees that are charged to developers for new residential development. It's a per unit fee, so single family home gets 1, duplex gets 2, so on and so forth. And they're based off of a needs assessment, which the Corp satisfies that requirement. So what it is you take the total dollar amount of projects that you wish to complete that you can tie to the expected increase or impact in the service. You divide it out by the expected number of units, and you get your fee basically. So the one that we had coming up in 2007 was $1,194. And like I said, we had to stop charging that because it's too outdated to be enforceable. And so we do have our court plan updated from last year, 2023. Unfortunately, it doesn't have specific dollar amounts in there. And so those are being updated right now by MSA for the projects that the Parks and Forestry Committee went over. Once those are completed, then we'll need to go through the process to enact our new impact fees if the board wishes to do so. And it'll have to be done relatively timely because there is a lost opportunity cost here, because obviously if we don't have it enacted by the date that a developer puts in their application for approval, then they cannot be charged.
Move that we move forward with updating the park impact fees.
Second.
You need a motion tonight?
I mean, not really. I just want to let you know what's going. I was kind of before I went on vacation. So this all happened actually
because I was
this all happened just prior to the parks meeting. After the board meeting, I dug deeper into the residential building permit and found that this fee and the additional $350 per residential unit for a tree fee, which I still don't know where that came from, are two fees that we can no longer charge because they're unenforceable based on statute. So, and unfortunately, it just so happens in that time frame, this 2-week time frame, we've already lost out on 6 figures worth of impact fees because we've had applications sent in. So
6 figures or 5 figures?
6.
The second one came through?
There's 3. So there's one, the smallest one is Bell West Phase 4. There's Baker's Woods Phase 3. And then there's also the Colt Drive.
Gotcha.
So 84 units. What was the other one? 78 units and 20 something units. So yeah, and we're only going to continue to get more, and that is going to be coming relatively quickly. I mean, it shouldn't be taken lightly. So fortunately, unfortunately, there's a process to this. Like I said, before I went on vacation, I was kind of hoping if by this time MSA would have the more updated numbers so that you guys could take a look at that and say, yes, we want to move forward with these projects tonight, because then we could start the ball rolling with the necessary advertising in the paper and noticing. And it has to be the proposed plan and all the documents have to be on file for viewing with the clerk's office 20 days prior to adoption. So this pushes this out middle of July at the earliest. And so we are expecting at least probably another 8-unit townhome and the 250 unit.
We're expecting that it's going to be here before this.
Probably by August. So it's not even close.
It gets going when the application.
Until it's done.
It's when the application gets
The
submitted.
application's put in whenever they submit the application. The fees are frozen at that point.
Since this came up, does the village need to look at the hookup fee? If it's in the same type of situation?
Probably, I just haven't got to that point because I was kind of inundated with trying to.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just mentioning that.
Yeah, that.
Maybe you should look at
Fee.
Yeah.
So that one needs to get looked at. I know that something that's coming between Public Works, Utilities and Facilities is KIT is proposing an increase in what should we call it?
Right, she's talking about the
Meter fee.
meter fee. We're
Yeah.
talking, that's like a $2.
It's still.
Okay.
So we're looking at all the fees.
Okay, well, the hookup fee, if I remember correctly, you have to go through a process to.
It's still a little bit of a process. Nothing like going through the PFC since it's sewer, but yeah.
I think you might.
We just looked at that a couple of years ago.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I think we did. The board changed the amount.
Well,
I remember.
Since it,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Extras.
Take on addition.
That's what I'd be doing anyway.
Okay, okay. I appreciate your enthusiasm.
That's what I'd have to do anyway.
Yeah, I guess since like I said, the work isn't quite done by MSA and you guys don't have updated proposed costs for the projects that Parks picked out, it's just kind of just a more of a FYI, just so you know what's coming. Yeah, as soon as we get that information, I'll have it on the next meeting and I'll get as much of the paperwork completed for the process as I can.
So did you need a motion at all or?
No, since we don't have the updated, we don't.
Withdraw like you're.
Okay. So next is discuss and consider fee waiver request for UW-Madison People Program.
So we have, actually, the next two items are both fee waiver requests. This first one comes from UW-Madison, which is a non-for-profit summer camp for high schoolers. They're doing like a 2-day camp, conservation, environmental interns. Apparently they did this last year in Community Park. I don't remember processing that application. But anyway, they sent one out this year. They're requesting, because they're a non-for-profit, they're requesting the fee waiver for the shelter. It's one of the shelters in Community Park. They're using it for 2 days. We're talking about $50. Staff has no opinion on. And we'll defer to your judgment on whether you want to waive that fee or not.
It says 2 shelters on it.
Oh, they've met, it says 2 shelters because they couldn't figure out which one they wanted. My understanding is it's 1 shelter for 2 days. They are poorly numbered in Community Park, the shelters.
So this isn't associated with the Upper Sugar River Watershed?
Yeah.
It looks like.
Yeah. And I think they work through UW and it's a program for high schoolers, is my understanding.
Do we know if any high schoolers from Belleville are part of the?
They did not tell us where these high schoolers are coming from. So I don't have that information. I don't know if that's a thing. Yeah.
And they just want a piece of the shelter.
They just want to use the shelter for their camp. It's a 2-day camp. I think 8 to 4 is what they, so 2 days.
They'll be staying overnight.
No, it's like a day camp for high.
Students participate in biological and environmental surveys with Upper Sugar River staff and other experts. Paddled the lake supported by Sugar River outfitters and interacted with career panel, including several village residents.
I make a motion that we do a fee waiver or honor their fee waiver request for the UW Wisconsin Madison People Program.
Second that. Discussion.
I don't have a problem agreeing to it, but I'd like a letter to go out to him to say next year, you're paying. I don't care about the sob story, you're paying. They don't work for free. And I've changed my position on that. I think from when I first got here, being like, oh, it's, we're nonprofit and it's this, and it's like, okay, but I think these $50 is easy to come up with these days. Crying out loud, McDonald's is what, 10, 15 bucks for a stupid Happy Meal or something like that? That's my opinion, though. I think all of the request fee waiver should be able to get one this year, but next year, send a letter out to everybody. Say.
Yeah, this is out of town and it is an all-day event for 2 days from 8 to 5. So.
Yep. Jim.
Yes, if you're gonna, I think it said 15 kids,
Is that what it said?
but
double
yeah, you
check.
figure
Yeah,
days,
15 participants, yeah.
days are gonna be having lunch, there's gonna be garbage. And then, I don't know what days are these.
$1.50 per kid a day.
What's the days?
The days are, sorry, the 8th and 9th, so that's a Monday, Tuesday in July.
I was gonna say it was Thursday, Friday or something, then we probably had somebody renting the shelter on the weekend. So we're gonna have.
It's Monday and a Tuesday.
So it's a Monday, Tuesday. I don't remember if we've got somebody in the shelter the day before, but I knew the dates were available. I can check.
I make my obligatory recommendation to deny.
Hmm?
My obligatory recommendation to deny. I always deny the,
I didn't.
I recommend, I always
So-
recommend denial.
We do have somebody in the shelter on Saturday. We don't have anybody in the shelter on Sunday. And they would be in the shelters Monday, Tuesday.
Well, I was sitting here looking at this and I was thinking, you know, they're out of town. And I would think that if we're gonna waive fees, it would be our own people, our own kids. Like you said, $25, 2 days, not that bad. It's the UW Madison.
They're organizing it. It's the people program. And we don't know exactly where the high schoolers are from. And I don't disagree, but how far is outside of town? Somebody that doesn't live in Belleville proper that goes to school here, is that an out towner? Is somebody that lives in Verona an out of towner?
Yeah.
Well, but that's the issue, right? I mean, and I don't know that we can determine that,
Pay
but
taxes here, that's fellow people.
well, then somebody that lives in Montrose shouldn't be eligible. So the soccer programs that we waived,
They go to school here?
I'm sorry,
They go to school here if they're in Montrose.
but they go to school here, they're not paying taxes to the village. If they're in Montrose, they pay $0 to the village,
I lived in Montrose and my family paid taxes here.
not to the village.
Went to school here.
To the school district you would, but not to the village. Well, I'm just saying, like, that's the reality. My take on this, and I guess it's more the fact that I still miffed about the whole Madison Metropolitan Sewage District taking water out of the Sugar River thing. And I tie that to this because this is actually high school kids from the area generally, right? They get exposure to the resources that are here to maybe enjoy our parks, that they might come down here. Wow, that's a really beautiful little community and I'd love to spend more time down there. I really enjoyed paddling on their lake or doing whatever. For $50 on the waiver, if we're in there learning about life sciences, maybe one of them will solve the problem with getting our lake clean someday. I have no idea what it's gonna be.
You go down,
$50.
you go down, and put it in a book in there, that they're stealing our water.
Well, believe me, I have thought about it, but this isn't the audience I would do that.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, but that's where I'm coming from. Because I don't disagree that there's a start and stop point for this, but I think there's also, again, I don't know the audience of this. I don't know if these are high school students from Belleville. Like, and I don't know that we can determine that.
I would guess that if it's a it's a UW program, I would say probably Dane County residents. Whereas we're part of that, but I couldn't specifically.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put you on it. I totally just don't know, and I don't know that we can determine that.
Yeah.
And for $50, I don't know that we need to. So I think we've got people that are Upper Sugar River Watershed Association is also closely associated with this. And I know a lot of them are local. So if not all of them, so that's where I land. Any other questions or comments? I need to do a roll.
That's fine.
This people started in 1999 with 66 students from Milwaukee. They have a location in Madison, but it's for UW system. And it's for high school up to grad students type of thing, for just strategy, perseverance. In fact, I mean, you know, grassroots. People's success would not be possible without all those who shared a vision during the early years when greater opportunities are given to students. Looks like students of color, low income. So we all reap the advantages of diversity of voices, bringing people to our campus and our world. And that's the program director's comment about it overall. So it looks like it's for
Students in need.
in need, yeah. Looks like that's what it is. But it's a UW program, and everybody knows UW's got billions of dollars. So I don't get how this isn't fully funded and why they even asked for a waiver, but nevertheless.
They asked for it because it's offered on the application. Most people are. If you look at our application, there's a whole section there.
We tried. Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call because I have no idea how this is gonna go, so.
All right. Okay, so the,
Motion was to accept the waiver made by Maxine, seconded by me.
okay. Trustee Bannon,
No.
Campbell. Casmore,
No.
Ward,
Yes.
Ziegler,
No.
Service,
No.
Larson.
I'm gonna say yes because I did. Wasn't really
Yeah,
And I had a big spiel about it too, so I gotta vote for it. So it's not good.
2-5 vote.
Okay, next one. So I have a feeling I know where this will go differently though, because this is high school soccer.
So this is the Sugar River High School girls soccer team. We have approved a fee waiver for them already this year. That was for the Sugar River soccer, not necessarily the high school girls. But we have approved a fee waiver for them. This certain application though is just a shelter for $25. They want to have an ice cream social. But once again, they've already received a fee waiver this year, so they figured, why not ask for another one? They feel like they deserve it. So once again, staff has no opinion on whether we should waive this or not, and I leave it up to you.
Recommendation.
Well, Ian has an opinion, but the clerk's office has no opinion, and we'll defer to your judgment.
It's got your way.
And this event is tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, the application is technically approved. It's only on, so they have approval. They have written us to check, as you could maybe see on her, that she wants us to rip up if you guys approve this. And
they want to have an ice cream.
they're having an ice cream
End of the
social,
year.
an end of the year ice cream social. That's what this event is for. Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve this because I think the girls' high school soccer team made it to regionals, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
The original final.
They were 2 steps away from duplicating the boys' effort this year. And I remember the person that is requesting this, and she was not real friendly to me last meeting, so I don't want to have that argument again.
I'm sorry.
Not true.
Now I gotta look to see who requested it.
I think it's the same person.
Yes, it is the same person. I already had a discussion with her. Okay.
You know how to get your way, don't
I can't help it. I'm a nice.
It was an emotional call, I think. Is an appropriate characterization. Any other comments on this? Okay, we'll do a roll call for that one too.
Trustee Bannon,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Casmar,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Ziegler,
Yes.
Service,
No.
Larson.
Yes.
That passes on a 6-1.
Okay, next, discuss and consider posting village board and plan commission meetings to YouTube.
You guys had prioritized this on one of the options. We ranked it as a number of 2024, so this was a top priority. For you guys, this would not be much staff time. It would be already recorded anyway. It's already open records anyway. What we would do for village board and planning commission after the meeting's done, we would just post it to YouTube.
This is to do what?
People who weren't at the meeting be able to look at it and actually
Increase.
experience it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'll move that we post village board and planning commission meetings to YouTube.
Second. So since we're in discussion, so motion by Gary, seconded by Mike. Turn off comments.
So this isn't streaming. This is posting after the
But they
meeting.
can still, there'll be an account there, right? So they can still comment.
I guess we can.
I think.
YouTube.
I'm sorry?
You should be able to turn off comments.
I would hope so,
Yeah.
but I'm navigating this because it's not just posting it. There's, I don't know, because haven't never posted any videos on YouTube, but I think
Yeah. You don't. Yes.
Monetize in case it go viral.
That's true.
School board posts theirs to their YouTube account.
But most municipalities do.
Yeah.
Right.
Just fine. I'm just like, it's another avenue.
Yeah, we can figure out how.
Can you live stream or does the school board live stream their meetings?
Maybe, but we're not there.
I know. Well, I know. I'm not saying we should, but because
I don't know if they live stream the meetings. School district does live stream some of like the concerts. and
in
stuff.
sporting events and concerts and stuff like
I'm
that.
sure they have the concerts too. I don't want to know what's happening at those, so I don't.
YouTube's a lot easier. Yeah. It's a steady place. We can put a link for videos on the website, but I would YouTube is a great, easy spot. And it's not like it's much staff time. Aaron would just download it, put it on YouTube, wait for it.
It doesn't cost us anything from YouTube because they're hosting the
Zero
size,
financial.
the size of the file is there, but then they could advertise off of it, I'm sure. So
Zero staff.
Yeah, for what it's worth, the school district does have their comments turned off on YouTube.
We can do that.
And then my motion to include just turning off the comment section for the videos.
Second.
So first is amendment to turn off the comments on videos on YouTube. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, and then that makes the original motion to post village board and plan commission meetings to YouTube. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So that carries. Both were Gary making a motion and second. Thank you, laughing over there at something.
Well, to Ian's point, if we left the comments on and turned on the monetization of it, you could have some real fun.
Oh, I've told coworkers at length that we could turn the whole village into a reality show and we could probably cover our budget in a heartbeat.
Right?
It's the best reality TV for us, like when we.
6 months.
So
Then you bring some good comments to every meeting.
we sit through, what's we go?
Go script something.
Oh, we don't have to script.
No, yeah. Let's not taint the natural capabilities ourselves or others in this village. Okay, so next is discuss and consider Fisher bequeathment investment strategy.
So, it's hard to do anything with the money because we got no direction with the money. Like I haven't got any direction and I don't know if any projects I want to use it for or anything like that. So I'm coming up with a timeline for investments or any of that kind of stuff. It's kind of difficult. So Tammy from Ellers came in to present to Finance and Governance Committee. That's the presentation that was supplied to you guys on the agenda. I mean, it just basically goes through current economic conditions, the basics on the treasury bills, which is what they have invested us in, I guess, most abundantly in the past. When you get to page 9, it shows as of the portfolio summary as of December 31st of 23. And from there on out, it gives more specificity to the financials for our portfolio. As of today, as of this minute, we're sitting at $1,653,942.65 in the Ellers managed account, and we have another 1,000 or so in a money market at Lake Ridge. So I forget the specific breakdown for what.
Recommendation from finance, and
Yeah,
I don't have the minutes in front of me because I don't have them yet. It's probably in the right wording, but I believe it was it 5% we left in cash, and then I think we had 35%, 30 and 30.
Yep.
With the 35% being the longest term, like 18 months.
12 and 6.
12 and 6. So the logic behind it was, to Ian's point, we don't have any specific projects pending. So, and all the investments that we'd be talking about would be, treasury bills would be the longest term, and they're all relatively liquid anyway, right? Like we could take money out of them and sell the treasuries and still not really be harmed. So the thought is, since we don't have any specific projects slated for this funding, although we do need to address that, but because of that, and I don't expect that we're gonna have any big, hey, in 6 months, we're gonna spend 1.6 million. We best not be in that category, in my opinion. But because of that, I think that's where we landed, was 35% was in 18 months.
The last one.
Oh, yeah, well,
You were in that one for.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I think it was 35 was 18 months, 30% for 12 months and 30% for 6 months, with 5% just left in.
Yeah, and that the 18 and 12 months was more to lock in the interest rate we're seeing now, because, I mean, based on the data, that most recent data, it's likely they're either going to stay the same or possibly drop the rates once this year. But who knows, especially with the election. So just locking in the rate as it is now. And then since we have the inverted yield with bonds, or bills, sorry, the short term actually yields higher than the long term. So keeping a healthy amount short term makes sense. Not to mention, it's just kind of smarter to ladder it in case we needed to get the money. Not that it would be penalized anyway.
So I'll make a motion to invest bequeathment funds as outlined, which would be 35% of the funds in 18-month treasuries, 30% in 12-month treasuries, and 30% in 6 months treasuries. I think is what it was.
5% money market.
In the
And
difference.
5 and leave
Five
the
of
5%
cash,
money market account.
Second.
or money market. Okay,
So second by Kurt. And the logic behind the additional 5% in the longer term was, we don't need the money and the rate's attractive, so we might as well ride the wave as long as we can.
So you're just talking about investment tonight.
Yes, correct. Yeah, this isn't any spending of anything. It's literally just, we have to make if we don't move it, it ends up moving into the money market. And
Okay. That's good, because my two people to speak with me ran out on me. So,
Okay.
If everybody's wondering, the interest rate currently is between 5.5 and 6, depending on the length of maturity.
Jenna.
Jenna, I just have a question about that grid that you've got there, Gabe. Is any of the lake project thought on the grid? Since that's something we have money to do something with, but is it on there?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It would need to be a lot more project specific with the individual parks and how.
The community park is really where that's designed. If they're gonna make any changes to community park, they're gonna do stuff. Because if you're gonna add a beach somewhere, they're not gonna redesign community park to not have the beach. And so it's kind of will go hand in hand. Yes.
so what other projects do you have for the
We
bequeath?
don't do it by that. That's redesign, it's community park. They'll use bequeathment money to do that. So. Sort of.
For what qualifies for their
Bequeathment is the enjoyment of the lake or river. What that means is up to the board. But that is the legal opinion. The enjoyment of the lake or river, enjoyment of water. If that's trauma mitigation, if that's a beach, if that's a slip and slide, whatever that might be, if the board says if it's for the enjoyment of the lake and river, that is what goes.
Gary, were you here?
Pardon?
Were you here when all this fight went on with Mr. Kringle?
Yeah.
Debbie was here. To be used for the Sugar River and Lake Bellevue.
So I'm gonna kind of redirect us back because we're not
Okay.
talking about how
Okay.
we're not talking about bequeathment tonight. We're talking about how we're gonna invest it for the period of time. That's a whole lengthier conversation, and I don't think.
Like for a meeting, but not this meeting.
Yeah, well, and I think
Stay armed.
I think to your question, Jen, I think what in my vision, whatever it is, I think we need to start engaging Upper Sugar River Watershed. We need to start engaging the university to bring some people in to talk to us about what are options for getting water quality improved and starting to do some of that sort of stuff that don't necessarily cost us any money to do that initially, but can help us think big picture as to like, can we do it as a sort of an endowment that we have maintenance costs, but that's a different conversation. This. Okay, so I made a motion seconded by Kurt to invest as I outlined 35%, 18 months, 30%, 12 months, 30%, 6 months, 5% from the money market. All in favor of that approach? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Next, discuss and consider information technology managed services RFP.
So we've been a little bit growing frustration with IT services. Lack of response times, being, we're more reactive than proactive. They also decided to increase the rates mid-year, running projects that wasn't included in the budget. But we didn't budget for it, so that pissed me off. And so we are in this spot that I'm asking for you guys to review, see what's in the marketplace. The market, we don't have to change, but I think we haven't done that for over 20 years to see what's in the IT marketplace. And I think we need to look at it.
We really need I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Do we really need everything you had?
That's what they do.
I know, but that's not my point. Do we need all of that?
What's your comment, Kurt? I can't hear.
Oh, that's right. You should. I'm wondering if we need all of those requested services for a company to bid on.
Most definitely we do. I believe as a community and the state of the technology here, we need a proactive partner in improving our technology. It is in a condition that is, it gets by day to day, is what it is. Unfortunately, I know from being in the field, we will very likely get sticker shock at what it truly costs to maintain a network properly.
Looked into it. Crazy.
So it will be a good exercise though. One of my frustrations is I have specifically requested on multiple occasions for a project list of what direction we should be going and how to get there, and quotes on to do it. Time estimates, time and materials, flat rate, whatever they want to do. And it's been met with silence, which is the most frustrating part, because without a quote, we can't budget for it or decide if we really want to move down that path or not. Engaging with a larger firm will get us in a position where things will move forward. One very small example that should be a low-hanging fruit is what's been discussed before about moving all of our files and everything into SharePoint and essentially eliminating that functionality of the servers here and going a more cloud-based solution, which, being a small organization offers a whole lot of benefits and protection that we don't have here. So I think it's certainly the necessary first step in the process to let everyone here get educated a little bit on what IT infrastructure and involvement really needs to be. And from my understanding, one very simple thing that on a day-to-day support level, this firm that we're currently working with doesn't offer a remote support solution, meaning if you call them up and say, hey, I got something showing up on my computer, can you connect to it? Or, and see from wherever they are working, and they don't do that or offer that. That is literally over 10 years ago that technology came into play. I do a little side business yet on my own, and I pay for that for the couple businesses that I support. So it's not expensive either. So I just think we need to move forward. And this is the start to understanding that process.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for proposal process for information technology services.
Second it.
Yeah, but that's a big.
Okay, whoever.
Any additional discussion on this?
And IT isn't here. This is going out. And we sent to them too. So.
There's a bunch of problems I've had too. Probably the worst one is you guys are getting your final audit in July because it took over 2 months to get a form sent back to us, but you could have had it done in May.
We have our stuff done.
Is that a
SB 96, the subscriptions?
Yeah.
So it took 2.5 months to get that back.
So motion to approve the RFP, seconded by me, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Reports from board, committees, commissions, and committees. And culture, anything, Mike?
Yeah, we received, I think it's 4 responses from artists for the mural. So that's good that we got some traction on that. Not all of the responses included necessarily everything we asked for. Some were missing like concept stuff. In their response was, I wanted to poll the community and see what they wanted. So, the quality of the responses, they were okay. They're all people that had experience before. Part of the process though, that's kind of slowing things up is the translation and getting the legal documents signed because the entity that owns the building is Chinese, I believe. And I don't know if they have someone with power of attorney here or not to be able to sign the documents. So Gabe, I had put, that was in your ballpark to try to move forward with that. We had 2 different documents. One, the original that was more legalese, and a simplified one. I don't know where we are with that, Gabe.
It'll go back to you guys, since we're changing the thing that approved, you have to approve it. So we are gonna take it back to you guys at the July 1st meeting just to.
June 27th. Arts and culture meeting, June 27th.
Yeah, no, but
You
the,
just said-
no,
You're talking
July
about that.
1st is the village board.
So sorry,
So you guys will reapprove
that.
Contract or the easement agreement July 1st. And the committee had self-imposed, or one committee had self-imposed that this had to be done by October for UFO days. And I think the rest of the committee's like, no, let's get this done right. Let's not slow it down, but let's just make sure we have the money. Let's hire somebody we trust. Like, let's just do it right. And so I think it's more of, let's just get it in, let's get the resident or the business owner to sign off on it. there's that language barrier that Mike said and just kind of, so. My goal is to get that approved Friday, July 1st, take it to the owner.
Is that committee members' decisions still stand?
Well, they're gone now.
Yeah. So
That's what I'm saying. It's slower now. It's
resign also.
What's that? What's that?
the committee member that wanted to rush it was, the committee decided that's not the best option and she resigned because of it.
Okay.
That's my update for arts and culture.
Okay. I'm not gonna provide an update for board of review because I think most all of you are there.
We are meeting June 11th at 5. July 11th. I hate summer. Pick a better name for all these months. July 11th.
Parks, Recreation and Forestry, again, I think we covered most everything. I think the biggest thing that we went through was putting together a list of projects that we can use for that park use or park impact fee, which I think is still being worked on, but we tried to compile, I think some of the stuff that's in there are like playground equipment for Sugar Park, Community Park, but other stuff. I think that we try to estimate stuff that were important and urgent and could easily be aligned and measured, because there's some nuance to the way that impact fee has to be levied and tied to different things, so. Finance and governance, the big thing we talked about is we just voted on was the allocation of funds for investing.
Skipped EDC, Jeff.
Sorry?
You skipped EDC.
Oh, I'm sorry. EDC, so
You have all these.
I have all these right next, yeah, so EDC was, yeah, so we actually had, Olivia came in from GCDC's, which I think was a great addition.
Yeah.
Piggly Wiggly was there.
And there's gonna be a Piggly Wiggly owner.
Yeah, I think we just voted to put her on,
Yep.
right? As part of our consent agenda, thank you. But no, with lots of great ideas and concepts about pop-up businesses and different ideas. Piggly Wiggly has some really good insight just because they've got stores in other small communities. I remember Lodi was the one that came up where Lodi specifically sits on the border of Dane County and Columbia County, so they have some of the same challenges that Belleville does relative to that, but they've gone through and really refreshed their whole downtown area and made it very vibrant and just some really great stuff relative to that. GCDC is working on a survey that we can send out to residents for what they would like to see in Belleville. So I think that's going to be a nice addition. Just lots of stuff going on there. So that was good. Finance and governance, I just talked about. We just talked about the investments. License Advisory Commission, we just passed all the stuff that we talked about on that. Oh, we did talk about the very early stages of, we'll call it a rubric, but we're probably going to talk more about guidelines. That will show up on the agenda next time for us, because the License Advisory Committee is, or commission, excuse me, is seeking guidance as to whether we even want to go down that path or not. So we'll talk about that more next time through, but just to, sort of set the table for that. Library Board, Deb, anything to report there? Police Committee?
Next meeting here for the board, we'll have stop signs by Blazer Park. And handicap here in the downtown area. And then we're also looking at possibly bringing to the board golf carts, but we're looking into that right now.
Did we take off the item for?
Yeah, that will be on the next one. I was waiting on Cody to give me specific dimensions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Cody wasn't ready.
And
So that'll be on.
it's ready for the next time.
Cool. Any news and announcements?
Fire and EMS wasn't on that list, so.
No,
Oh.
in closed session.
Oh, well, I was gonna just give, okay,
Oh, we can go, if you want to give an,
I mean,
they're happy with us?
yeah, they love us. The municipal members love us. Just budget will be interesting. There was a motion to go ahead and purchase the $350,000 ambulance, which was voted down because it didn't meet the 3/5 or the 80% threshold that it needed to do that, and it's really not being done in the proper procedures. So, so it's 2 vehicles now that they've asked for in the last 2 meetings. So budget should be very interesting this year. Let's just put it that way.
Do you mind if I expound on the issue, the underlying issue at all? Because I think Jenna, you commented something on Facebook and I don't think anybody really responded. Just because I didn't want to stir the pot any more than I already have, but I'm getting ready to stir it. So the fire district, as we probably most of us know, is comprised of 5 entities, right? You have the Village of Belleville, Town of Montrose, Town of Exeter. Is it the Town of Brooklyn?
Yeah.
And the town of. Okay. You guys know the numbers better than I do, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically, the Village of Belleville has, and fire is done separately from EMS in terms of funding. Fire is done by value and EMS is done by population. So for fire, Belleville has about
41.53%.
41% of the equalized value for the entire district. And we have about 45% of the population for the EMS district, or for that part of it, right? Then if you go to Exeter, I think is next. So Exeter is, for fire, is about 34% of equalized value. And they are about 35% of population. Montrose is 22 and 20
and 17.
So 22 and 17% of the district. Then it jumps way down to Brooklyn, I think, right?
Oregon. For fire, Oregon is 1.2% and Brooklyn is 0.6%.
And population-wise, similar numbers.
Oregon is 1% and Brooklyn is about 0.6%.
0.6%. Okay. So where that becomes significant is the board, again, consists of 5 members of entities, but the 3 large entities, namely Belleville, Town of Montrose, and Town of Exeter, each have 2 seats on the board. So Deb and Gary represent this body in the district. The same is true for Exeter. They have 2 seats on the board. Montrose has 2 seats on the board. And Town of Oregon and Town of Brooklyn each have 1 seat on the board. Okay, so if you do the quick math, that means that Belleville has 46 and 40 whatever percent of population. It's in the 40s anyway.
Yeah.
But we only have 25% of the vote. Exeter and Montrose similarly have 36 or 33, 35% of population or equalized value, and they have 25% of the vote. Town of Oregon has 1.6% of population and equalized value, but gets 12.5% of the vote because they've got 1 seat out of 8, right? See the issue. Okay, so where that becomes a problem, especially when it comes to budgeting for us and doing all the stuff, and like the ambulance barely failed, that probably wouldn't have passed if both Deb and Carrie wouldn't have been there. That it's sort of like taxation without representation is really what it comes down to. And if Belleville grows, it's very possible that in the very near future, we might have over 50% of equalized value and or population for the entire district, and we won't have a say as to what happens. And that's a problem. Connie.
So I'm understanding that we pay a
Absolutely.
lot more because of that,
Correct.
but we have almost
voting.
no votes.
We don't have representative voting relative to the
we don't have as much say as we get to pay the tab.
So if the 1% decides, oh, who cares, we're gonna get a new ambulance, they could push that through somehow?
You bet. It has
I
been
think
done.
That's not right.
On the operating budget, yes, it's a village votes no, an operating budget could still pass. For a capital project, it couldn't, it wouldn't. I mean, you have to have 80% of the votes have to go
Oh,
for it. So, but, you know, the big increase the last couple of years has been in the operating budget, so.
So Jenna, to your question, I think that you posed on the line, it was more, again, it's more structural as to the way that the district is structured. This body is absolutely supportive of both fire and EMS. We want to make sure that they get the appropriate equipment, but that's what we got to, the sensitivity around that is what we don't want to have happen is, you know, having people, you know, not picking in the streets necessarily, but like, oh, the village board doesn't want to support our firefighters or doesn't want to support our EMS, and that's not at all what's happening. What's happening is that we want representation for how much we represent residents because we're paying our fair share for sure, but we don't have a voice to represent the fair share that we
I think my question there was, so it sounded like there was this group, and I don't remember the exact.
There's a committee. Yeah, there's a committee, a special committee that was set up by the district that is comprised of other representatives from, including, so Gary's on that committee. There's somebody from
Town of Montrose, Town of Exeter, and Town of Oregon.
and Town of Oregon, yeah.
Or Town of Brooklyn, I'm sorry.
Town of Brooklyn, yeah. And ironically, the Town of Brooklyn person chairs the committee because they're good friends, I think, with the chair, the president of the district. So it's, yes, it's gonna be. Yeah.
So, okay, so back to that question about how the organization of it. So is there just one entity that, because it sounded to me like there was this group making one decision and this group making another, which I understand EMS and fire are two different. I'm not going there. And yes, we want to support them. I'm not saying we don't. But it just sounded like there were different groups of people trying to do the same thing.
No, so it's very similar to a committee structure here, is that the committee is working on what they're gonna do with the agreement and ultimately bring it back to the district board, which would be very similar, like if it was done, if police or parks came up, but license advisory, right? Like we'll come up, if the board says, hey, do this, we'll come up with something and bring it back to the board and say, hey, this is what we recommend you do. And then the board decides to take action. That's what's happening. So they basically set up a committee to evaluate how to proceed with that. So it's, yeah.
Just sounded like there were extra layers there, and I'm thinking.
It is, but it's.
There are not any subcommittees or any committees of the board, of the fire and EMS district board normally. So this was a specially created committee. It's one of the very few that I can ever remember on that board, so.
Does that help a little bit? Yeah, so that's, yeah. More to come. And
So who makes those rules? How do you get them changed?
well,
So
that's.
Is that at the state?
It's an amendment to the agreement. No, there's an agreement that's signed by all five of the municipalities, and you have to go through an amendment process to change it, so.
So, yeah, but it's not easy and
Not popular.
It's, not popular relative to the body, so. That's where I suspect there's gonna be, I don't know what's gonna happen, but it could be more fireworks relative to. We don't have a lot of leverage. How about that? Well,
that's what we're trying to.
We have one leverage spot, which is not gonna go well at all, so. Take our ball and go home, basically, yeah. Which we can't afford to do and don't want to do either. But. Yeah. Okay. Any other announcements relative to stuff?
Senior citizens had a meeting tonight and they are getting money, donations, and she actually got 2 grants to help pay for a new kitchen. And their goal was to get 45,000. They are now at 40,000. So they're doing really good, and they're going to have their pie sale They're gonna be working on that in July. That's about it. Yes.
I have a question about that. I asked today, but nobody could answer me. So I don't understand why they're going after a new kitchen, because didn't they get all that Wolf appliances donated?
The appliances are fine.
Oh, okay.
But they're trying to make it a commercial kitchen and up to code. So they want to revise the kitchen. They'll still keep the appliances because they're good. But there are things like they need 2 sinks, one for the wash up, another one to do food in. And so that's what they're.
So are they gonna cook their food themselves there? Is it still gonna be hauled in?
It sounds like that's going to be the thing eventually.
Nice.
Yeah. But that's the big thing. They got their pie sale, they'll be promoting that in July.
Okay.
There's something about the drain, there was a wrong drain, so then they didn't meet code for that either.
I'm sorry, what?
A code, I'm sorry. a
Yeah, they get
drain.
it, their kitchen doesn't meet code.
Okay.
But it will be done.
Okay, well, that'll be nice.
Yes, it will.
Any other upcoming community events or future agenda items?
Spring cleanup starts Wednesday. You should have your stuff on the curb by Wednesday morning, even if they don't pick it up by Thursday.
Go to scavenge stuff.
Start tomorrow.
Yeah.
Already
Somebody
out.
put a Trek bike across the street. I felt bad because it's like front tire just needs to be replaced. I might have to see if they want it fixed. It's be a shame to see that go.
The stuff they throw. Yeah, my own junk. Okay.
Cool. Okay. Next item, closed session. The Village of Belleville Village Board will enter into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subsection E for the purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The village board may reconvene into open session and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. This is related to A, VB 2024-31, establishing a negotiating position regarding the Belleville Fire and EMS District, and B, VB 2024-52, discuss and consider an acquisition of parkland at 57 River Street. Do I have
second.
a motion?
Oh, I'll make that motion then.
I'll second it then.
Gary, seconded by Maxine. I have to do roll call minute, please.
Trustee Bannon.
Yep.
Campbell.
Yes.
Casmar.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Pickler.
Yes.
Service.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Yeah, that passes. We are on closed session at
Closed session at 8:47.